officers, and welcome to the member of the public over there. Hello, welcome to this evening's meeting of the full meeting of the Derbyshire Dales District Council. Thank you very much for coming along. Apologies for the absence of the tea and coffee machine, but we'll have to keep on our toes, and I'm sure the debate tonight will keep us that way. So first of all, could we have apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor David Burton, Councillor Dawn Gretorix and Councillor Andy Nash.
Thank you. Okay. We don't have any members of the public asking questions in front of us tonight, but there are 5 questions that we've received beforehand. You'll have those questions on the attached sheet in front of you. I will read them out. I've decided we've got answers as well. So the first question we have is from Victoria Friend, a Roseley local resident, and she says, has the District Council given the High Tor players notice to remove their large container from Old Station Close car park in Roseley? The response that we have here says that following an approach from High Tor players, discussions are taking place with them regarding some alternative storage as the current containers are in poor condition. No notices have been served. Second question from Sian Bacon, Roseley Parish Council. The Parish Council ask whether you can please give us an idea when the planning applications for the temporary travellers sites will be issued. It has been some months since the December 2024 decision on the 4 sites to be sent for planning, but nothing has been heard since then. The response is that officers have been working with external architects to prepare and submit planning applications for change of use at the station car park, Derwent Way, Matlock and Old Station Close, Roseley. The Council received formal notification from the architects on the 17th of March that both applications have been validated and site notices will be displayed over the coming days. The applications can be viewed on the Council's planning portal. Work on the remaining planning applications will commence later in the year. Third question from Joe Wildgoose, a Roseley local resident. At the full council meeting in December, it was decided to apply for use of the Old Station Close car park in Roseley as a temporary traveller site, only from March to October, with the family in question being sited at Matlock, Bath from November to the end of February. Why does the planning application 2500200 not specify occupation only over these months? The answer. A planning application has been submitted to seek change of use for a total period of 2 years on occupation at Old Station Road Car Park, Roseley. The periods of use for the purpose of traveller site, if planning is approved, was tabled and agreed at the extraordinary council meeting on the 9th of December 2024. Question from Kerry Andrews, Roseley local resident. According to the Council's own records, the car park at Old Station Close in Roseley has a capacity of 29 spaces. However, the Council's own planning application, number 2500200 full, intends to use some of that land for a temporary traveller site and also specifies access to the traveller site through the remainder of the car park. Therefore, please tell me the appropriate number of spaces that would be left for local people, visitors, tourists, users of the Old Station Close car park, businesses and local charity to park in. The response is, based on the suggested footprint in the planning application, the remaining capacity of the car park is considered to be a minimum of 20 spaces. And the last question from Claire Ashbrook. I have noticed that the Council have dug up and taken the pay and display machine away from the travellers' end of the Matlock Station car park. Also, large concrete blocks have been placed in the car park in front of the area where the existing travellers are. Could the Council please tell us the reason for moving the pay and display machine and also the use of the concrete blocks in the car park, please? It seems a lot of money is being spent on this area of the car park, and we would like to know if this is being made into a permanent traveller site. I feel the people and ratepayers of Matlock and surrounding areas should have the full disclosure from the Council what is happening and what monies are being spent on this site. The response, as agreed at the full meeting of the District Council in December, work is taking place in our Matlock Station car park to create a more formal area for the traveller family encamped there. while increasing by 8 the number of parking spaces available to the general public. It will mean that the family will have access to their own temporary tolerated area without the need for height barriers. 2 new height barriers are being installed at the entry-exit to the main car park, which will no longer be accessible from the travellers' area. This means the traveller family will no longer have access to the height barrier locks, a restriction that reduces the possibility of additional unauthorised high vehicles and caravans entering the site. To compensate for the loss of 8 parking spaces in the new layout, the District Council is creating 16 new spaces by marking out for standard vehicles a former coach parking area. Coaches are using the bus station area next door to drop off and pick up passengers. 2 of the 3 payment machines are also being relocated to maximise parking space. Subject to planning permission being granted, councillors have agreed that the station car park will be used as a temporary tolerated site for a period of 2 years to facilitate the traveller family who have been encamped on site for the past 3 years and to whom the council owes a legal obligation. In the meantime, the search is on to identify appropriate permanent traveller sites here in the Derbyshire Dales that will make temporary sites unnecessary, at which time these adaptations will be removed. That concludes the questions. Those will all be posted on the Council's website as well. Could we move on to item 3, which is declarations of interests? So could members declare if they have, and if that's the case, any nature of interests they may wish to notify us of in relation to subsequent agenda items, please. Councillor Hobson.
Chair, I've taken advice from the monitoring officer about the local government reorganisation debate, but I have decided that I will withdraw from that meeting. That agenda item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murphy.
And the same for myself.
I can't see any other declarations of interest, in which case we move on to the leader announcements. Leader of the Council, Councillor Flitter.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we've got a busy agenda, so I'll not keep you long. But a few good news points at the moment. The biodiversity project continues across the district with 80 new sites right across the district. And since how the survey last year that was conducted listed 177 different species of wildflowers that have been able to flourish across our verges and green spaces. Also, following discussions with Cash Access UK, the completion of some minor alterations, we are pleased to be able to accommodate a new temporary Bakewell banking hub at the Agricultural Business Centre. The hub, which opened on the 5th of March, is available to customers of all major banks to visit any weekday between 9 and 5. This welcome announcement recognised that the District Council's efforts in convening a meeting in Bakewell following a council resolution last year. With a direct liaison with Link and positive work done by our local Derbyshire Dales MP John Whitby. Decarbonisation works have now been completed at Northwood Depot, and they've got the installation of solar PV panels, air source heat pumps, providing heating and water to offices and mess rooms with improved insulation and LED energy efficient lighting. The District Council's brand new skate park in Matlock Hawleys opened to the public at the end of February with new flood resistant stainless steel structure. Composite panels replacing the 20-year-old wooden skate park, which had very recent years have had lots of maintenance. The official opening of that event will take place on Saturday the 19th of July from 11 o'clock till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Hawley's splash pad Works have now been completed and just awaiting installation, inspection and signing it off. The old paddling pool has now been replaced for a fun, interactive and inclusive splash pad based on the boating lake theme. Also, our sports development team, they've been successful in receiving funding to deliver holiday, activity and food programme during the Easter holidays. And this gives children who are on benefits related to school meals the opportunity to take part in multi-sports afternoons and including free packed lunch. The community development team have also been working closely with Queen Elizabeth Grammar School in Ashbourne. For the sixth form, students are to improve Ashbourne Park. The students have already in progress making bird boxes ahead of the nesting season and planted 70 trees. More community work continues this month with Ashbourne Primary School, which is making a bug hotel and planting wildflower seeds in the park. The home upgrade grant continues to be delivered, and it will be delivered until the end of March. This scheme provides fully funded energy efficient upgrades for fuel poor off-gas homes. To date, improvements have been completed in 49 privately owned homes, with the greatest upgrading seeing an EPC rating of F increased to A. Fully funded energy efficiency improvements have been completed in 20 more properties, including and with funding from the devolution deal. 44 measures are installed, which have included external wall insulation, solar PV, loft insulation, and digital smart heating controls. All of those properties have received measures, that had received measures, have had their EPC improved to at least a C rating. Our Green Rewards and Green Home Guide, launched in early March, which is online to platform to incentivize, encourage and inspire residents to take up a responsive and positive environmental behaviour change. Focus on themes including sustainable travel, waste and recycling, energy, consumption, community and biodiversity. Nearly 70 Derbyshire Dales homes have already signed up within 2 weeks. We're also proud to have supported the historic Shrovetide event in Ashbourne, again this year, by ensuring that our leisure centre in Ashbourne was made available to provide the event's luncheon before the game gets underway each day. And our Clean and Green team have done very well in clearing the litter and debris after the event, and that was kindly acknowledged by the Shrovetide Committee. And finally, on the good news, I just want to congratulate Steve Capes and his team, Giles Dan, on completing the Matlock bus station project. That is absolutely brilliant. It's clean, it's tidy, it's got seats, it's got people where they can sit in comfort, and it's very much appreciated. In fact, the only downtime that I've had on that the other day when I was using the bus station was that the seats were cold. But there we go. We can't win them all. I'd just like to report that Paul Wilson and myself attended last Thursday and Friday the DCN conference, where there were 350 delegates. Jim McMahon was talking about his big ambition, the passionate about people and places, direction and pace, talked about local partnerships, collaboration, flexibility, clarity and purpose. And he also went on to talk about the economy, leadership and service delivery. And that's all related to local government review. Mayor Clare was also there, and she explained to us why she stood for that position, the role in which she is developing and the challenges on delivering the manifesto, unlocking funds for growth, engagement with districts and boroughs, and would you believe they've already got 140 staff to manage. There are also panel discussions and breakout sessions over the 2 days on maximising opportunity and navigating the challenges of LGR, balancing housing and growth with environmental stability, delivering housing in partnership, fairness in age debt, cyber security, navigating transition, social care and children's services in a unitary role. And he also talked about perspective of leadership and the new planning bill. But what was even more important is the networking that took place outside of these meetings, where people got together of all political persuasions, chatting about LGR and all other delivery of services that this council is engaged in. But the last thing that I want to say tonight, Chair, is that we've got a couple of items on this agenda tonight that really are pressurising what we do as a council. And it really bases down to member expectations of what we can and what we can't do, and the real intensive workload of our officers at this particular time. With LGR, we're all shattered and we've only just started. It is going to take a lot of work, not through the leadership roles, but also officer roles. And when we talk about LGR and transition, we're talking about work streams, which I think there are 9 already. So this is a very important role. It is very time consuming, and that's why we've got to measure in what we do and how we do it. And I hope members understand that, to let the officers get on and do the job that we're asking them to do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And now we move on to the Civic Chairman's announcements, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I went to 7 events from the end of January till the present council meeting. The first event I went to was on the 7th of February on a cold morning. My concert and I attended the Derbyshire Swimming Championships at Moor Lane Sports Centre, Derby. On entering the large swimming pool area, it was completely different, like a different world. It was very warm and very comfortable. It was very enjoyable seeing all the young people competing in the championships, many from the Derbyshire Dales. Moving on, February the 27th, I was pleased to open as Steve already said, the social and affordable housing development at Mayfield Road, Ashburn. This was in partnership with Nottingham Housing Association and the District Council Housing Department. I am really pleased to see that the gas was not used on this site, the project, that there were solar panels and heat source pumps on the property, and it's all properly installed, so it will make a great savings on energy for the tenants. And cutting carbon emissions is very important. This project I love to open. I'm a big supporter of social and affordable housing, and hopefully many more projects like this will come along, hopefully in this coming year. We are very pleased. We were very pleased to be invited to the Shrovetide dinner at Ashburn Leisure Centre. There was over 400 guests for roast beef and Yorkshire pudding, which was served by an efficient army of waiters. It's good to see that the historic game is being played at Shrovetide. It's a part of Ashburn's heritage. On Saturday, the 8th of March, my consultant and I attended Amber Valley Borough Council Charity Civic Dinner at Chevin Golf Club, Duffield. It was a very enjoyable meeting, and talking with mayors and civic chairs from all around Derbyshire and listening and sharing the views of the reorganisation of the borough and district councils. On Friday the 14th of March, my consultant and myself attended the charity event Celebrate Chesterfield, which was at Chesterfield College. The students provided a lovely meal, and other students from arts and drama entertained us with popular songs. There's many learning courses at Chesterfield College, just to mention a few: building trade, motor mechanics, hairdressing, and other apprenticeships are there. And I've noticed that the new block is being built, so they're expanding that area. On Saturday the 15th, we attended the Ashburn Merge charity event, which was a concert at St John's Church, Ashburn, with the Ashburn Singers Choir. This was an outstanding concert, a great variety of modern tunes from the 1960s to 70s, John Lennon tunes and classical tunes. It was a really enjoyable evening, and the Ashburn Singers put on a number of events throughout the year, so I can recommend that you attend. You'll have an enjoyable evening at one of the events which will be coming up shortly in May, I believe. So it's one of the best events I've attended this year for entertainment. On Sunday the 15th, we attended Matlock Mears civic service at St Giles Church. This was a well attended, and afterwards we had a buffet tea and provided in the Imperial Rooms Matlock, with a ukulele band playing in the background. That was really great. Again, it's very nice. It was a very nice service and a delicious buffet. I will be having my civic service on the Sunday the 16th of April at St Mary's Church, Worksworth, at 3 p.m. With Worksworth Raise Your Voice Esquires will be in attending, and afterwards afternoon tea at Wellspring Centre. This is the first, I believe this is the first civic service since the COVID pandemic. On Saturday, May the 10th, we are having a country and western a charity country and western evening in Worksworth Town Hall. Taking part will be a veteran country and western singer, Paul J. Hopkins, well known in the East Midlands entertainment circles, plus other entertainers, a bar and burgers for only £15. So it's really good value for money. So tickets will be available shortly. All the funds from this event, from this civic event, will go to Young Lives versus Cancer, which we all know is cancer amongst young people is growing, so we have to do our very best to find new cures and help families to support getting through this terrible, terrible problem. So many thanks to all you for your support, and thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Slack. Very full report there. Lots going on. Okay, so we now move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is to receive non-exempt minutes of the committees. You've got a list of those committees in front of you there on the agenda from January through to February. Could I have a proposer to move those on block, please? Councillor Hughes, thank you very much. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Wilton, thank you. Okay, so that could we have that then as a vote by members, please? All those in favour, please show. I think that's everybody. Any against? Oh, sorry, no, and no abstention. Therefore, no abstentions either. Okay, thank you. So that's all in favour. And then item 7 then, which is questions. So this is questions from members who have given notice. And our first question is from Councillor Froggatt, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can the Leader of the Council give a detailed explanation as to what led to the decision to locate the temporary banking hub at the ABC rather than Bakewell Town Centre? And was the impact on elderly and disabled residents considered?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Froggatt. At the meeting of the Council on the 4th of April 2024, it was resolved that this Council should pursue the establishment of a banking hub in Bakewell and should engage with partners to proactively support the development of such a facility in accordance with this resolution. Myself and the Chief Executive pursued this matter with Cash Access UK, successfully hosted a meeting in Bakewell with them and John Whitby, the MP, and representatives of the Peak District National Park Authority. A number of locations were visited, and Cash Access UK assessed the viability of each location. The decision to locate the temporary banking hub at the ABC was taken by Cash Access UK in accordance with their own assessment and their specific access requirements. This is a temporary facility pending a permanent banking hub being provided. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Froggatt, do you wish to?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Flitter. My supplementary is, are the Council actively looking for a property or a premises for the banking hub? If so, if someone would like to contact me, I've got the perfect place for it.
Sounds like an offer we can't refuse.
Thank you.
So our next...
Can I
Oh, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I'll just respond to that. Thank you for that information, Councillor Froggatt. And yes, the Council are actively involved, and if there are premises that come available, we shall certainly be relaying that to Access Cash UK to actually take that forward. But we will be working towards a permanent site.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hobson, I believe you have a question to the Leader.
Thank you, Chair. Transparency is the cornerstone of democracy. I am committed to open and transparent governance and ask that the Leader explain publicly why 2 agenda items in recent full council meetings were held behind closed doors, and if he agrees that those councillors who agreed to those meetings in private were shutting out the people we are supposed to serve.
Councillor Flitter.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Hobson. I take it that you are referring to the confidential report considered at the recent extraordinary meeting of the Council concerning the planning appeal related to the land at Sandy Lane, Bent Lane and Gritston Road in Matlock, and the minute of the relating to that item. As you are aware, the report and the minute contained exempt information within paragraph 3 and paragraph 5 of part 1 of Schedule 12A, that's a mouthful, of the Local Government Act in 1972. And it was resolved by this Council that the press and public should be excluded from that meeting while that report was considered, as the public interest in maintaining the exempt information outweighed the public interest in disclosing that information for the reasons that were set out in that report.
Councillor Hobson.
What about the second part? Do you think that these meetings in private are shutting out the people that we are serving?
I'm offering no opinion, but following the procedure.
Thank you. My supplementary question is, democracy dies in darkness. Just think about that for a moment. Democracy dies in darkness. I'm beyond exasperation. You might think that's funny. Those people at Matlock don't think it's funny. Will the leader of the council now commit to record and video all working group meetings, all committees and all council meetings from now on? Thank you.
Councillor Flitter.
Thank you, Chair. I find it a little bit frustrating, especially for the past 20-odd years. No member outside the controlling party has ever learnt what was going on in private meetings. Yeah. We don't do that. But we had an investigation not long ago that highlighted that we did have to take a look at our minute taking and our note taking at various working groups. That we are continuing to improve. That was laid down by East Midlands Council. We are sticking to that, and we do not hide information, but we release it as and when we can safely do so, that is contained within the statute of law.
So can I just come back? So you're not committing to recording and videoing all working groups, committees and council meetings?
You've had your supplementary question, Councillor Hobson. Could we have the next councillor question, please? That's from Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Can the leader of the council ensure that work involving the Ashbourne-Reborn project is fully inspected to ensure that the work has been done to a satisfactory standard before being signed off for payment?
Councillor Flitter.
Very good question, Councillor Lees. The Ashbourne-Reborn public realm and highways works are being managed by Derbyshire County Council. These are being delivered by their contractor Galliford Try on behalf of the council. An on-site supervisor is responsible for identifying and reporting all defects. If work is not up to the expected standard, this will be dealt with by the County Council's contractor. Councillor Lees, like me, sits on the Ashbourne-Reborn Programme Board. We had a full debate on works at the last board meeting. Work on site started last month and it is in its early stages. With no areas being complete or signed off at this stage, it is clear that while much of the initial paving works were of a good standard, paving in one area was below that standard, and we are assured that it will be assessed once again by that contractor. Any other concerns should be reported to the Derbyshire County Council. As the accountable body for Ashbourne-Reborn, Derbyshire Dales District Council has a grant funding agreement with Derbyshire County Council, which includes the requirement for evidence that work is properly undertaken in accordance with the agreed specification, prior to associated payment of any grant from the District Council to the County Council.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter. Yeah, just I know it's in its early days, early stages, but we've had issues with the bridge, with the walling on the bridge, which was supposed to be addressed straight after Shrovetide, and I noticed that work on the pavement has started without doing the work to the bridge, the remedial work to the bridge, which doesn't make sense to me. I'm very concerned that if we don't nip these sort of things in the bud as they're happening, it gets to the stage when it's complete, it'll be like the fourth bridge, it'll never get finished because they'll be redoing what they've already started at the beginning. So I am concerned that this work needs to be inspected thoroughly as it is progressing. Thank you.
Let's come back on that.
I'll just answer that, Chair. Quite understand your concerns, Councillor Lees. We have the chairman present of the Ashbourne project, and we have some very good staff overseeing that project, and I'm sure that they will take your comments on board and see whether we can get action on the points that need to be actioned. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I did have a walk round with the estates officer, Mike Goldsworthy, the other week, as he assured me that it was on the case.
Jolly good.
And they've introduced cement as well now to the mix, so we are getting somewhere.
Good to hear. Thank you. All right, that concludes questions from members then. So we now move on to item 8, which is a proposal of notice of motions. And we have a motion submitted by Councillor O'Brien in accordance with Rule 16. Councillor O'Brien, yeah, I know you'd like to amend this motion, wouldn't you, and propose an amended motion which is on the desk in front of members tonight. Before we do that, members, are you agreeable to consent that Councillor O'Brien propose that amended motion in place of the original motion? Could we have a show of hands in support of that, please? Looks like it's overwhelming. Yeah. Okay. I don't believe there's anyone against that, is there? No. Okay. In which case, we move on to the proposal then. Councillor O'Brien, you have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues, for agreeing to consider and debate the simplified proposal, which was circulated, I hope, in good time for you to appraise over the past couple of days. I'm pleased to present this proposal to you this evening, which comes with the support of the Council's Labour Group. I hope at the end of the debate it will enjoy the support of all members, irrespective of party allegiance. Affordable housing is an issue that unites us on this council rather than divides us. At the outset, I also want to thank all those officers and members who have contributed to the proposal over the past couple of months. Discussions have often been robust, but I think the outcome is all the better for that. Now, whilst there are particular issues in my own ward, the Hathersage ward, with younger working families in Eam, Hathersage, Stoney Middleton, unable to find a home that they can afford to buy, and frustrated by the continuing acute shortage of social housing to rent, so much so that they have no option but to leave for Sheffield or Chesterfield, and the consequent impact on the viability of our primary schools, our shops, and other essential services. But I am sure that the same issues arise in many other districts, many other communities across the district, and not just within the Peak District National Park. What has become apparent over the past few months is that whilst we now have a very welcome commitment in our corporate plan to achieve a step change in the delivery of affordable housing, at what I would call the operational level, we are still struggling to make progress. And by we, I mean both council officers and our housing association partners. And by operational, I mean working at the community level to identify sites, to overcome planning issues, to overcome challenges, simply such as those of moving public toilets, working with Derbyshire Fire and Rescue to relocate Hathersage Fire Station to provide a site for affordable housing, getting funding in place, and acquiring additional land. Certainly in the complex arena that is the Peak District National Park, there is rarely such a thing as a straightforward development opportunity. Often these issues require specialist expertise, which neither the council nor housing associations possess. Even increasing the pace of the development process is difficult, with our own housing development manager working only 3 days a week and having to divide himself between 20 different initiatives. I'm happy to acknowledge that our Chief Executive is currently working extremely hard to expand our capacity to deliver more affordable housing, bringing in more development partners, utilising finance in more creative ways, etc. I have no doubt that this will produce dividends in the future. And I hope that Paul, whilst not wanting to express a view on the proposal itself, if asked, will be more than pleased to explain to members what he is hoping to achieve. And I hope that when you hear that, you will see that there is a synergy between what he is doing and what this proposal is seeking to achieve. The essence of the proposal before you is in recommendation 2. This is to address what I call here and now operational issues of the sort I referred to earlier, to help move forward initiatives which get stuck for the lack of specialist resources. Exactly in the same way as we called in resources to support work on traveller site identification, our climate change and biodiversity priorities, and in the new local plan. If and when these resources are drawn on, and where from, is entirely up to officers. And I hope, like me, you will have full confidence in team housing to use their professional judgment as to when to bring this into being. Yes, I feel there needs to be some oversight of the process by members, hence recommendation 5. Now, I understand that some of you may be fazed by the use of the term housing task force and imagine an army of new people. I simply use the term task force to emphasise the importance of our collective work, that's members, officers and our development partners, on affordable housing, the importance to our residents, the importance to our development partners, to Mayor Clare Ward and to the East Midlands Combined Authority. Colleagues, thank you, and I look forward to an informed and constructive debate.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for this motion? Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I think Peter summarised very well some of the technical issues, and I thought it'd be helpful just to maybe think about why this is so important from a, I guess, more human point of view, because often when we talk about housing, I think it gets lost in spreadsheets and minutes and technical regulations. So I just want to share a couple of, I guess, case studies that I've been given from residents in my ward. I'm just going to read them verbatim. The first is from a resident who says, "I'm currently in a challenging situation that I hope might help illustrate the difficulties many families in our area are facing. I'm living in a one-bedroom flat, and yet I share 50-50 co-parenting responsibilities for my children. The small space is not suitable for a family of our size. It's creating significant stress and hardship for us all. The lack of affordable larger housing options within the ward mean that despite my best efforts, I've been unable to find a more suitable home. The current housing situation is not just impacting our day-to-day living, but our mental and emotional well-being. It's difficult to provide a stable and comfortable environment for my children when we're cramped into such a small space." So that was one gentleman. I have a second statement here from another resident. "I'm born and raised in Stony Middleton and Eam. I currently live in Chesterfield, and I'm trying to get back to where I was raised. I've been on the council list for 2 years, and only 2 houses have come up in the area, and even then I came 14th in priority. I work in Grindleford. I care for my grandmother who lives in Eam. My daughter goes to Hope Valley College. I suffer with my mental health and would benefit from being closer to my family, and at the moment buying a house isn't an option and renting is far too expensive." And then the final one I want to share with you, again, another resident in Stoney. "I came out of a 2-decade-long marriage and have been forced into private renting, which is extortionate as the demand is so high due to lack of affordable housing. It makes it near on possible to save sufficiently each month towards a deposit, and the house prices are so high. I've lived in the area for over 20 years. I work full-time in the area with a good job, but most of my wage goes on bills and rent. Affordable housing is very much needed in the ward, not just for people like me, but also for younger generations who stand no chance of being able to buy where they grew up." There are more stories like that. I suspect we all have similar stories. The point I'm trying to make is that, like Peter, I want to acknowledge the work that Paul's team, the housing team, already do, but the model we have for bringing forward social housing, certainly outside of the Peak Park, is not sufficient, and we need a different model inside the Peak Park to deal with these challenges. So I would strongly urge you to consider giving Paul and his team the firepower they need to move this forward at pace.
Thank you, Councillor Upton, for those heartfelt contributions. Okay, so we're now moving into debate. I have a couple of councillors. Councillor Butcher, I think, first of all.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Slack.
Mr. Speak, that we're just registering to speak.
Sorry.
We're just registered to speak.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't support the ambition of this motion more. I feel very strongly, and Simon has made a strong case at a personal level for it. So I feel very strongly that this is something to be supported. But I do have some reservations, and despite the fact that Labour Group supported it, I think the reservations are sufficiently significant that I want to put it to Council that we consider deferring this motion to another meeting. And the reasons for this are Paul is doing excellent work, as Peter O'Brien and Simon have said, in terms of taking forward the housing agenda and the degree of affordable housing in an amazing way, given he's covering for two directors that are missing. He's working hard now on the reorganisation work, and he's got a big election coming up, and he's still managing to do some of this housing work. And my worry is that I know Peter says this is very much in synergy with what Paul is doing, and I can see that it largely is. Nevertheless, it looks on paper, without the extra words that Peter said in the meeting, as if it is asking new things at the current time for Paul to do on top of the things he's already doing in housing, and that's what I'm worried about. And the two areas that I have a worry here is, one is the drawing up the remit in terms of reference that clearly needs work in addition to what he's doing, and then recruiting a team. It said in the previous one, it didn't quite say that, but that's clearly the intention. So it's very helpful that Peter says if and when new officers want to bring in resource, that it gives them the authority to do so. I think they can do that. They need to get approval for funding, which would have to come to another council meeting. The second thing is the member oversight. Now, clearly, we do want members to be involved, and it would be good to be cross-party. And the kind of model we've had of 4 members in a working group, one from each party, would be a very sensible arrangement, perhaps as a liaison group, but certainly not something that's like a subcommittee, one that can keep updated and approve actions rather than having officer support. So that's the sort of thing that I think Paul and we would be happy with. But it's just it's softening down, and I think probably now is not the time to start amending it. There is already a meeting happening next week with with Paul and a number of interested councillors, leaders, and people from proposing the motion, where Paul can set out what he's doing, and there can be a bit of a debate and working through what is the next steps and whether that's covering all that's required. And it feels like this is a bit of a heavy-duty addition to that and could cause Paul extra work when really all that would be counterproductive. So my suggestion is we defer. Within the Constitution, it talks about adjourning debate. So maybe we can think about adjourning debate, but I'd like to allow people to discuss my deferral idea. I don't know how we possibly manage the Constitution for that, but...
All right. Thank you, Councillor Butcher. I just wonder, at this stage, would it be appropriate for Paul to make a few comments on this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, as the motion states, both the previous administration and the current council administration are admirably committed to the delivery of affordable housing, and as a rural local authority, I think we've been extremely successful in comparison to many similar-sized organisations over many, many years. However, I think we all need to acknowledge that the environment around us is changing. We have a very clear policy direction from government, which is wanting to significantly accelerate the delivery of housing, both affordable housing and market housing. We have a situation whereby registered providers are becoming smaller in number as their various corporate mergers take place, so there are fewer partners to effectively operate and partner with. And the funding of affordable housing is also subject to significant challenge and future change. I think the challenges that all of that poses for a rural authority such as Derbyshire Dales is that we have different types of challenge relative to the national park and areas outside of the national park. In the national park, it is extremely difficult to deliver affordable housing schemes. And as Councillor Ripton and Councillor O'Brien quite rightly point to, there is significant demand in those communities, which, despite our very best efforts, we are simply not addressing. So the approach that we've taken for many, many years, admirable as it may be, is not delivering the outputs that we want to achieve. So we need to pursue some different models, some different opportunities. Outside of the National Park, we continue to deliver successful affordable housing schemes, the latest being in Ashbourne. Whilst it's still challenging, it is somewhat easier because you can deliver at scale, you don't have the same constraints, and so on and so forth. So the work that I've been doing in the absence of the Director of Housing is to really look at a solutions-focused action plan to deliver on the very specific challenges that exist inside the National Park, be that identifying land, identifying partners, overcoming challenges with the National Park Planning Authority, and also looking at an action plan outside of the National Park to actually maximise opportunities, deliver more sites such as the one Councillor Slack referred to at Ashbourne, and also ensure that we continue to meet the needs in those communities as well. There is a clear need for additional resource and capacity, and it's not a case of just employing more officers. That isn't the answer, in my view. I think we need to access the critical skills that exist in a development team that might sit in a rural housing provider or a development company. They are very specialist skills. We do have partners who have those skills. We can access those connections. We do have people who can actually help us bridge the gap between the affordable housing needs work that we do and the development interface, which is about finding land, finding developers, putting funded programs together and securing delivery on the ground. So that is the work that I'm doing at the moment. We have achieved some success already in terms of attracting some new registered providers who are interested in the Dales. I've also met with some new developer partners who are interested in developing in the Dales, and those discussions will be continuing next week and in the following weeks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, and thank you, members, for allowing that that comment there, which I think is helpful. Now, I notice there's a number of hands raised. I'm prepared to take all those. I may have missed one or two people. Councillor Wayne, did you have your hand up at one point?
I just raise a point of order.
Yeah.
Is Councillor Butcher putting forward an amendment? Because if he is, are we going to be talking to his, or are we going to be talking to Councillor O'Brien's?
Okay.
That's what I'm just clarifying. Thank you.
Good question. So we have a proposal for a deferral. We don't have a seconder for that yet. At the moment, I'm minded to take councillors' comments and interventions on the motion as it stands. So I'm trying to think who was first. I believe Councillor Buttle was first in the queue. Yes?
Yeah, because I'd like to follow on from Councillor Wayne, because I'm confused here, because I've got a motion that's being presented by Councillor O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
I've got an obvious attempt to amend it, and then I've got a speech from an officer. So I need to know what's going on here, please. Could I have some credibility?
It's not an amendment, it's a deferral.
Well, yeah, we need to have it explained properly what's actually happening so we know what to vote on. Because I'm happy to vote on and speak on Councillor O'Brien's motion.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay. Back into debate. Yeah. Okay, all right, so we had advice here. We'll look for a seconder first of all for the deferral. Do we have such a seconder? Councillor Dobbs, thank you. Okay. And would you like to speak to that?
Very briefly, I believe a meeting is taking place next week, which was alluded to. That seems to be highly relevant to this particular motion and may help to make it a better motion when we return to it.
Okay, all right. So we're now debating a...
Should we have a vote on the deferral?
On the deferral, yeah. Okay, vote on the deferral, please, first of all, then. Could we have a show of hands in favour of deferral? Sorry?
Yeah, I suppose it.
Yes. Okay, all right. So before we... Yes, okay, all right. Okay, so we're now into debate on the deferral itself. Yes, Councillor Wayne.
Right, thank you very much. So I think the paper's excellently set out. I see absolutely no reason to delay, and I'm even more convinced after Paul has spoken, because everything Paul has just stated, in my opinion, backs up the whole ethos of the paper. Paul talks about wanting to access specialist skills. We have the finances in our budget to be able to do that. The paper seems to suggest that we would give officers, Paul and officers, the ability to be able to pull on those resources. So delaying for another month or another 2 months or waiting for this or waiting for... Isn't that what we always do? And this is why we're exactly in this situation, why we never move forward, because there's always a reason not to do something. We need to start acting. We need to start moving things forward. So I think deferring this, again, because I'm pretty sure Peter very graciously withdrew it from the last meeting or the meeting before because we ran out of time. So it's already been delayed 2 or 3 months, and we're suggesting delaying it by another month. I would kind of ask members to throw that out, please.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Colleagues, before you reach a decision on this, I'd just ask you to reflect on how yet another deferral would appear to our residents and to our partners. This is, as you'll see from later on in the agenda, this is one of the council's top priorities, if not the top priority. And yet again, we're deferring taking a decision on bringing resources to the table that, as Councillor Whitehead says, is enabling officers to deliver precisely what Paul has set out. That is why there is a synergy between this proposal and what our Chief Executive set out. This is enabling Paul Wilson and his team to deliver. I have to say I'm also interested because this is as I said earlier, this is a proposal which I think is important to all 34 members of this council. So I am interested in hearing the views from colleagues from all around the table. If we defer this, there is no opportunity for either myself, Simon Ripton, or Paul Wilson, our officers, to hear those opinions. So I think just as important for our residents to know that this council actually doesn't sit on its hands. It does put resources behind those words in our corporate plan. I want to hear the views of colleagues. And when we've heard the views of colleagues, that is the time to vote on whether this is an appropriate vehicle to move forward. Thank you, colleagues.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, we are still commenting on the deferral issue at the moment, and I've got a number of hands up just to make it clear to members that that's what we're talking about. Councillor G.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to echo Councillor O'Brien, because I'd like to talk on his motion, and I don't want to see it hijacked. So I'd actually like to talk on it, and I'd like us to vote on it. So when I get a chance, if I get a chance to talk on it, please let me know.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Yeah. Let's just deal with the deferral debate at the moment. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is an argument about nothing, really. Taking Councillor O'Brien's position and Councillor Ripton's position, they're asking for additional resource to put into housing, affordable housing, particularly in the Peak Park, and a housing working group to provide some oversight to that. Am I not right? What Mr. Wilson says is, I'm doing some work on that at the moment. I'm going to report next week. And the other thing that Simon Ripton and Peter O'Brien says is that the remit and terms of reference of the Housing Task Force, that is the additional resource, and its recruitment are delegated to the Chief Executive. So I think we're probably all in agreement that we need a bit more resource in housing anyway, which is what Peter is talking about. A working group is quite a reasonable suggestion to do that. The big gap is what is the remit and what is this resource that's required. And as far as I can see, it's been given to Paul Wilson to determine what resource is required. And he's going to report on that next week. So what's the issue? There's no issue. Paul Wilson and Peter and Simon can come back to us with a more specific specification of the resources that are required once we've heard from Paul Wilson's consultant who's doing the work at the moment. So let us defer it let's ask Paul Wilson to come back and fill in the gap which is missing from this, which is what this housing work task force or the additional resource is going to look like. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Flitter, you wanted to say something as well, I think, on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Like David, I think we're getting wrapped up in something that we'd no need to get wrapped up in. Nobody, I don't think, is objecting to setting up a panel or whatever you want to call it to look into being able to have more affordable housing. It rightly says that, you know, this is our top priority. So obviously we're supporting that issue. Well, my view is that we've got to get this right. So often we bundle our way through reports and wishes that haven't been properly thought through. And the piece that worries me about the present motion is that we talk, and it has been talked about, the model. And as we know over the past months, that the model that was put forward does not work for this council. All our officers are telling us that, and that's what we have to respect. Now, next week's meeting, that is a meeting that Paul has been doing for some while now into building relationships so we can come up with something. And it's going to include Councillor Ripton and Councillor O'Brien, and then we can actually button down what model actually works for this area, not what could work for another authority. We're very successful in attracting social housing and first-time properties in this area, but not to the scale where we want to be. So yes, we've got to move forward. But I don't want to prejudice the discussions with partners next week. We talk about delays. The delays are because we've got no staff at the moment, and we've got to put those in place. And until we do that, nothing's going to happen. But it's quite simple, and I don't see what the rush is for this, because we can continue these talks next week, and you've got an AGM coming up in May, and that's the time where we set up all the working groups, that's where we set up committees, and this will be included in that. So let's get it right first time round. Don't let's keep going backwards and forwards all the time. Let's defer this motion. Let's go to these talks and get something we can take to the AGM, set it up in the right way, and put the right resources to it between now and then. I don't see what it's all about. We want the same thing, but it's the way that we do it. So I'm supporting the deferral.
Okay. So members have heard the arguments for and against a deferral. There's still a couple of hands. Okay, briefly, Councillor Buttle.
Thank you. Right, so this one's kind of a bit weird, isn't it? Because what we're doing is Peter's offering us a pretty big nudge to deal with our own corporate plan, which is something we're trying to do anyway. So I'm kind of definitely in favour of that. I am going to address the deferral. So I'm keen on the nudge. It being deferred is actually quite good from my point of view, because it keeps pushing the administration to get on with what we're meant to be doing. So that's kind of good as well. And the work that Paul's actually already doing seems to be covered by quite a lot of Peter's motion and Peter and Simon's motion. So the deferral makes sense because it keeps the pressure up, and we should be pushed. I'm entirely in favour of us being pushed. So my understanding is we're coming up with an action plan for the Peak District area. We're coming up with an action plan for affordable housing. We're going to have a resourcing plan. This is all coming through from Paul, as Paul's just said. We're going to have a resourcing plan for housing. And we're going to have discussions with RPs, developers, housing associations. And then we're also going to pull together some sort of housing working group. So I'm kind of totally fine with a deferral, because we're pretty much, I think, covering what Peter wants to do. But I do think we need to be really pushing on this, because we've got a commitment to our communities, for the people in those communities to be able to continue to live there, for their children to live in the same village, that kind of thing. So we do need to do this. So I'm absolutely fine with it if we're going to nudge the corporate housing strategy along and we're going to defer.
Thank you.
Then that's kind of okay.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Wayne.
I think we mustn't lose sight that affordable housing, the people who want affordable housing don't mind whether it's coming from an initiative of this council, like Peter's putting forward, or through developer contributions to build affordable housing on land that they're developing. Now, I think we need to get a little bit more robust in our development process, because there are 3 large developments around Matlock of approximately 1,100 houses without a single affordable house on that development. Now, that to me is wholly unacceptable. And what compounds this even more, I think I'm starting to disappear a bit here, but what compounds this even more is that there's the recent inquiry, the District Council chose not to obstruct the appeal from the appellant in relation to the Gritston Road site. And there is no affordable housing on there. That's a greenfield site. So when we're saying we've got commitment, I think the local people of Matlock and other areas will question that commitment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we've now got to a point where people have had a say on the deferral issue, so we will now move to a vote on that, because we've had a proposer and a second.
Chair, can I ask a question,
yes,
please? Is it intended that members of the opposition party, our colleagues, will have to wait until a future council meeting to know the outcome of these deliberations, or will they be engaged in the process between now and then?
Well, that's a question which they don't appear to want to engage with at the moment.
Well, we've not been invited, have we?
Okay. Well, you were invited tonight, obviously. Yes. Okay. Councillor G, you've spoken once already on this. I think we are in a position where we need to move along now. So can we actually have the vote, please, in favour of deferral? All those in favour of deferring, please raise their hands.
Just 2 there. Sorry.
Okay. Yep. And could we have all those against deferral, please, showing?
Councillor Slight, your microphone's on.
Sorry, members. Councillor Bottle, did you vote in the last?
No, I'm going to abstain.
You're going to abstain, right? Yeah. So this is against now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Abstain?
And abstentions. So that the motion to defer is clearly carried. Thank you, members. Can we, in that case, move on to our next, which is a motion submitted by Councillor G.
Yeah, thank you. Just before I start with this, could I just clarify, I'm going to propose the motion. Do you want me to speak on it then and then have it seconded, or do you want to have it seconded and then I speak on it?
Well, have you got a seconder?
Yeah.
Okay, right. You can speak on it now.
Right,
yes.
yeah, because I don't want to be hijacked before I've spoken on it. Right, thank you. Just, you don't know what's going to happen in this room tonight. Right. So the motion is, as you've seen written in the paper, I've tried to keep it simple. The council should, with immediate effect, halt its work on the new updated local plan and under exceptional circumstances undertake a Greenbelt review in Derbyshire Dales. This is with the aim to implement a Greenbelt across the whole of Derbyshire Dales, excluding the National Park. The purpose of this would be to protect the area against development, which leads to the merging of our towns and villages, and also prevent undesirable outward expansion beyond recognised settlement boundaries, leading to the loss of valuable green fields, areas of significant natural value to communities, and valuable finite agricultural land. And in speaking on this, what I'd like to say is, when I came to this council, I was slightly perplexed at the urgency given to the review of the local plan. Since we have an adopted plan, which apparently lasts until 2032, but I was persuaded, you know, that this was needed because it is like a moving target, the local plan. And I understand that the new administration wanted to put its stamp on it. And also, I've been on the local plan committee and I've gone along with most of the policies and I've been positive about them. So that is a good thing. However, in last November 2024, the goalposts were moved completely by the new MPPF, the Labour proposals. From that moment, the attention of the housing delivery became unacceptable as far as I was concerned. It was planning by algorithms, and if enacted, this would be an act of planning vandalism on Derbyshire Dales. I could never support the council seeking to deliver a local plan with this intended outcome. Well, we sit here now and we're being told, as we'll come to later, we've got 2 years left on this council, apparently. I'm not happy with that. But the fact is, does this council want to spend the next 2 years delivering on those proposals for the exceptional, you know, too many houses in the housing targets, which we know are undeliverable and unacceptable and damaging? Or would you like to spend those 2 years looking at the possibility to deliver a green belt that's much needed in Derbyshire Dales to protect areas? Now, the coalition, because obviously I can see where I'm coming from, but the coalition is not forced to follow Labour's lead on this planning in Derbyshire. And I'm calling out to you to take a different pathway. So please, you know, don't do any shenanigans amending it, voting. Vote for this and let's give a chance to see if our officers can deliver. You know, we haven't got an unlimited amount of officer time. They can't be delivering 600 houses a year. We can't go down that path. Let's do something different. Let's spend the last 2 years of Derbyshire Dales and leave a legacy that will protect our beautiful countryside in the future.
Thank you. So we do have a seconder. Is that yourself, Councillor Hobson?
Thank you, Chair. I'm obviously supporting and seconding Councillor G. The green fields in the Derbyshire Dales are disappearing fast, with the Progressive Alliance supporting the Labour government's ridiculous housing target of around 600 houses a year. It's time we stopped accepting these numbers and pledged to protect the communities of the Derbyshire Dales. Derbyshire Dales District Council can't let its residents down by letting developers chip away at our countryside. It's not about putting words in a leaflet opposing excessive housing. Stand up for your residents and vote in public tonight to support Councillor G's motion. This isn't just about the history of why we don't have a green belt. It's about places like Darley-Dale and Matlock keeping their separate identities. We can't go on like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, do we have anyone wishing to speak against? I've got Councillor Hughes, first of all. Sorry? So we're into debate on the motion.
Can I just ask, are we having questions about this or not? Because we normally have questions and then move into debate.
Not on a motion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. First point, really. Government advice is that a green belt doesn't save green areas from development if you don't meet your housing numbers. Therefore, we've got a housing target. We have which gives us a 5-year housing supply of something like 1,000 houses, perhaps 1,200 houses. If we don't meet that 5-year housing supply, any green belt will not provide any protection against development, just as the local plan requires a balance between development and following the policies in the plan. So the first point is that defining an area in Derbyshire Dales as green belt will make no difference to whether or not we build on green areas. The second point is that there are a number of paragraphs in the MPPF about green belts that set out criteria for defining an area that would be a green belt, and the green belts are designed to protect land around major conurbations. We're a rural area. None of our market towns is a major conurbation, and none of those market towns is in danger of merging with another market town. So a green belt, and we would need to get permission. We would need to get any green belt proposal accepted by Ministry of State. So whether or not whether it meets or doesn't meet the NPPF criteria would be material in determining whether or not the green belt was accepted. While that was happening, we wouldn't, according to Councillor G's motion, we would not be developing the local plan. The local plan does give us some protection over development, but and it does give protection for the market towns in terms of the green areas around those market towns. In the local plan, we're proposing to have define areas around between Tansley and Matlock, Matlock and Darley-Dale, and Darley-Dale and Roseley to protect those green areas as far as we are able to, if we given our rather poor position in relation to the housing target. We have absolutely no power if we do not try to meet that housing target, which has been set by government and is effectively government policy. So we have a fantasy position in terms of the green belt. Any green belt proposal here would be a fantasy. It wouldn't get approved, and it would delay the development of the local plan, which is more likely to get approved because it will be defined in terms that are suitable for the area concerned.
Thank you.
So the going ahead with the green belt is just fantasy.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. Some comments as Chair of the Council's Local Plan Subcommittee. First, I'd like to acknowledge the positive contributions that both Councillor G and Councillor Hobson make to the work of that subcommittee. But I'm afraid I have to say that on this occasion, I think there's a misunderstanding, as Councillor Hughes has pointed out, there's a misunderstanding as to the purpose of a green belt. A green belt is not there to prevent housing development. A green belt is there to prevent the coalescence of adjoining settlements, such as Sheffield in Rotherham or Swadlincote and Burton-on-Trent. It is not there, and it's not appropriate. It's not laid down in the legislation as its purpose to prevent development. There are other avenues we can use, as Councillor Hughes has pointed out. There are other avenues within the local plan we can use to protect our most valuable landscapes, and the local plan subcommittee will be addressing that in future. So I'd simply, I understand the reason that the proposal has been put forward, but I'm afraid the vehicle which is being used to oppose the level of housing development in the district council, a green belt designation is just the wrong vehicle to be used. There are other mechanisms which can be used to protect development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Burfoot, Martin Burfoot.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with Councillor Hughes and Councillor O'Brien. I think if the Council follows Councillor G's advice and we fail to produce a viable government inspector approved and updated local plan, the government will or could impose a local plan on us. In the meantime, the outdated 2017 plan will prevail. There was a plan voted for by the then Tory administration, and I think backed by 4 or 5 members still on this council, and that would actually endorse the housing targets then, or housing sites then, that were approved, and was unacceptable housing sites like Gritston Road on the Wolds and others throughout the district that we're now opposing and have opposed on several occasions at either planning committee or inquiries and appeals. So I think the Conservative members, if they back this motion, need to ask themselves that question. What will be the outcome of supporting such a, well, I think it's a ridiculous proposal actually, because it's contrary to all government, in fact, both Conservative and Labour governments, present Labour governments, housing and planning policies. So I think we'd be certainly isolated nationally if we fail to do this. I mean, there have been other examples of local authorities failing to produce a local plan that's going to be acceptable, but these things are obviously few and far between. So we'd be probably fairly unique in the country if we go ahead with something like this, which is, and the important thing is, of course, that it won't do anything for the housing supply that we need, or the lack of affordable housing we've just been talking about, or we will talk about when the deferred motion from Councillor Bryan is finally debated. But it won't just be housing sites that we won't be able to find, but it'll be affordable housing sites that we won't be able to find. And the other thing that I'll just say, I heard a comment about the Progressive Alliance, I think it's Councillor Hobson, promoting or supporting the Labour government's new housing targets. Of course we're not doing that. We haven't even debated it either on this council or within the Progressive Alliance. But the other problem is that if we go ahead with something like this, and I think Councillor G does fail to appreciate that the specialist staff required and expertise to assess the location and extent of any green belt protection around the perimeter of our towns and villages, it can't be the whole lot. It can't be all the land between. We'd have to determine, first of all, where the extent of the existing built-up areas are, and what, how much land may be required for really urgent housing need. So I think it's just unworkable, totally unworkable. I suppose I can say something in favour of it. It's justified in terms of landscape and agricultural land protection and maintaining the separation, as Councillor Hughes said, of Matlock with both Darley-Dale and Tansey and Roseley. But even the present local plan has one policy in favour of separating Matlock from Darley-Dale. That hasn't been followed necessarily because we've had some rather unfortunate decisions made to develop sites between Matlock and Darley-Dale in the open areas that we already had and we're hoping to protect. So I just can't see that this is ever going to work at all. So I'll certainly oppose this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Hughes and Councillor Burfoot and Councillor Pete O'Brien. I think it's a ridiculous thing to even suggest throwing away of the local plan. I've never heard anything like it here, really. The government would step in straight away, and I'm sure, and we'd get ourselves in hot water. We need housing. Let's be honest about it, we need housing. In my ward at Worksworth, people, Councillor Hobson says residents have told her they want more greenfields out. Well, in my ward, in Worksworth, it's the opposite. Residents want housing and affordable housing and social housing. We're terribly short of it in Worksworth. And I sympathise with Pete O'Brien and the Peak District. And that the big problem is that Peak Park aren't doing in my opinion, aren't obligating to creating more housing. I think we've got to build housing. You know, we've still got controls to certain landscapes and so on, but to even think of scrapping a local plan is ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous in my opinion. And I'll definitely vote against, and I'll campaign against it as well. We need housing, and we've got to have housing for residents. Are important, people are important. Yeah, landscape is important, but don't forget we support people, and we're looking after our people, and we want more housing for our people. So I can't support Councillor G's proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Linthwaite.
Thank you, Chair. I do support a lot of the things that Councillor G and Councillor Hobson have talked about in terms of having the right housing in the right places and trying to make sure that our communities retain their individuality. I also totally agree with them in terms of the housing numbers that are going to be imposed upon us from on high. However, talk of a green belt is very sort of mother's milk and apple pie. It all sounds very nice in theory, but the reality of the situation is if we don't have a local plan and if the government imposes, which they will, the housing numbers on us, and we don't have a demonstrable five-year housing supply, we then run into problems immediately. We are already experiencing those problems in fighting unsuitable development within the local plan that we have, because we don't have a five-year housing supply. So to just sort of pretend that we can sort of walk away from that is simply not realistic. Methinks I spy an election.
Thank you. Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You can't wholly disagree with what Councillor G is putting forward. But it's wonderful words and it's wonderful ideals, and we can all relate to that. But I think Councillor used the terminology that it's fantasy on thinking we can do this. I mean, how long does it take to envisage and put in place a greenbelt notification? I mean, all the preparation work, all the evidence to be collected, and yeah, we've only got 2 years to do that, and it would be meaningless. And the whole thing about this council working on its local plan, that it's a statutory requirement to do that, and we've no choice about that, but it's also about leaving a legacy for the council that comes in and takes over to abide by when we're not here. It could be quite different if we left it up to somebody else. So I applaud the work that's been done on this council. You know, government doesn't take a lot of notice of district councils and people of our size. And they don't work very fast. You talk about district council being slow on certain things. Government is a damn sight slower. Unless, of course, they want to push through things that they're really passionate about, and it can suddenly be done tomorrow. But it is a statutory requirement. We do have to leave that legacy, and we do have to continue with that local plan. And we heard that time and time again at DCN conference last week, is that the government are pushing through all the housing bills, they're pushing through the numbers. We haven't got a leg to stand on. And we've got to realise what is reality. And the reality is that we have to finish that local plan and we have to get it submitted to protect this area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly. Perhaps a reminder that there are really two questions when it comes to planning, when it comes to decisions. Have you got the housing supply and is it in the local plan? And if you've got the wrong answers to those, you're nowhere. And part of that is why there's problems in the recent appeal. That's also revealed, if you've been following the many days of the Gritstone appeal, some of the limitations in our local plan. In the last Teams meeting, they were talking about a viability review policy. We could do with one of those. Does the current plan have one? No. It needs revising. You cannot be blasé about an out-of-date local plan. If you want to see what happens, look at Ashbourne. In about 2013, 2014, a local plan was submitted with a modest housing supply. It was rejected in one day. What followed was essentially all the farms to the south of Ashbourne being built on. It was planning by appeal. There's 600 houses with no community buildings and 2 ways in and out. It was not planned because there wasn't a local plan in place. That's the risk. That's too big a risk. Don't even go there. This needs to be rejected. Thank you.
Councillor Susan Burford.
Thank you, Chair. I think a lot of sensible things have been said, certainly by this side of the room, to be honest. I think if the public listen or read this motion, they'll think, oh, that sounds good. We'll have one of those. But let them not be fooled by this. It would be absolute madness to scrap the local plan. Can I just remind members over there who put the Wolds in the local plan? In the 2017 local plan, it was the Conservative administration who put it in. So I'm not into all this posturing about blaming this side for what's going on about the Wolds side. You put it in. So please remember that. Sensible things have been said, as I say, by members on this side of the room. I think this should be rejected wholeheartedly. Councillor G will be aware, I'm sure, of professional advice given to him, or given to all of us, and I'm quoting, "It is considered wholly appropriate to pursue the allocation of a statutory green belt for Derbyshire Dales through the current review of the local plan." That's been given by people who are professionally qualified. Does he think he knows better?
Okay, Councillor Buckler.
Firstly, the local plan is in terms of planning, is the most important document we have. You know, we should absolutely be working as hard as we can to get it in place. I did want to counter some of the points made by Councillor Slack, because actually, there is stuff in Councillor G's motion which I support, that some of the housing numbers which are being asked of us are ridiculous. We say that Derbyshire Dales is a great place to live, work and visit, and quite a lot of the decisions which are
which we are making that less so, you know, and but the route to doing that is not the route through this motion. The route to doing that is to have a robust local plan which enables us to make informed decisions at planning committee. And so, you know, we should absolutely reject this. We should be doing whatever we can to come up with sensible numbers, and we should be doing whatever we can, you know, we should be doing whatever we can nationally to try and make sure that we get appropriate numbers, appropriate development where it's required, not just doing it by algorithm.
Councillor Hobson.
Thank you. Where's the challenge, though? Just accepting these numbers? You know, Councillor Linthwaite says, oh, we're politicking. You know, see sense over housing. That's what you said. So what are you going to do about it? What is going to be seeing sense over housing? Accepting 600 plus houses a year? It's madness. What are you going to do about it?
Okay. Councillor G.
Yeah, I believe I've got a chance to come back to some comments that have been made, please. Yeah, so, I mean, in answer to this, the purpose behind my motion, I don't want to kowtow to the Labour government's proposals for houses in Derbyshire because I don't think it's appropriate. I don't want to. David Hughes said I'm living in fantasy land. Well, you know, a Derbyshire Dales with the green belt to protect it would be a fantasy land, and I'd like to live in it because we haven't had one, and that's not how green belt works. I mean, green belt is ever changing. I've seen the green belt in Amber Valley, and it does protect areas. I mean, that was put down 45 years ago, and the Labour government have got a problem with green belts in a lot of areas. They've got to, that's why they've said they don't work anymore. We've got to have growth sites in them. I tried to do a green belt review on Amber Valley to put growth sites into it. The way it works is it gives us control over where we build. Our planners can do proper town planning. They can put green belt areas where the Wolds is, or it is at the moment, should have been protected by green belt. That would be in my fantasy land. So if the Liberals want to go along with the Labour's housing plans, I mean, the idea that we've got protection by going along with these, by having a local plan, you're living in fantasy land because the developers are going to have carte blanche to build where they like, because we'll never meet those housing needs of 600 houses a year. We know that already. I mean, our local plan currently, the one that we're actually living with, has 285 in it, and the one that you were making has 217. You've got to triple it. The developers are coming forward and they will build exactly where they like. Councillor Barefoot says my motion is ridiculous. We'll see what the people of Matlock think about that, because I think a green belt for Matlock will be a good thing and we should try and get one. Thank you.
Councillor Wayne.
Wouldn't it be marvellous if we got the funding to do both? That's what I think. Because at the end of the day, you know, I understand what Councillor G is saying in relation to Greenbelt and the protection that it can afford. But the obligation for us is that we are obligated to do a local plan. And that is the first thing that we must be doing. I want to reassure Councillor Hobson that I am appalled by the housing numbers coming from this government, totally. And if you were to ask the people around this room, I'm sure most of them would, and some actual Labour Party members may be also horrified by it. It's unacceptable. But I think we've got to work as a council. We've not got to go separately and say, oh, well, the Matlock people are against, disagree with you. We've got to work as a council to challenge this and put forward meaningful argument. It's very, very difficult because the government, unfortunately, are in a very powerful position. At the end of the day, I totally agree that a lot of what Councillor G has put forward is important. I mean, I've sat through this blinking inquiry last week, and it's awful. And the comment that Councillor Dobbs alludes to about the policy that we don't have in the local plan, it's very important that we get one in, because we might be losing out on a considerable amount of money because we haven't got it. So I think, personally, we need to put arguments apart. We need to get on with it and put meaningful argument to government, because we're not the only district or borough council in this country that's in this position. There'll be many like us. So I think we do need to do it, collaboratively rather than separately. Thank you.
Okay. Now, we've had a long discussion on this, members. I know other people want to speak, but you have already spoken once and you've had a chance to reply. So I am now minded to move to the vote if members
Can I rebut Sue Burfoot's comment?
I think you've already spoken, Councillor Hughes, on this. So because time is moving on, I think we do actually need to move to a vote if members are in agreement with that. We can, of course. Yes, that's a request. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Edwards-Walker seconding that. Okay. So all those in favour of a recorded vote? No, it's automatic. Sorry, my apologies. Right, okay. In which case, we're now moving to a recorded vote.
Councillor Archer. Against. Councillor Bates. Abstain. Councillor Boynton. Abstain. Councillor Bond. Abstain. Councillor Buckler.
Against.
Councillor Bull. Councillor Burfoot, Martin Burfoot. Against. Councillor Sue Burfoot. Councillor Butcher.
Against.
Councillor Buttle.
Against.
Councillor Chapman.
Abstain.
Councillor Dobbs.
Against.
Councillor Edwards-Walker.
For.
Councillor Flitter.
Against.
Councillor Franks.
Against.
Councillor Froggatt.
Abstain.
Councillor G.
For.
Councillor Hobson.
For.
Councillor Hughes.
Against.
Councillor Lees.
For.
Councillor Linthwaite.
Against.
Councillor Maelstrom.
Against.
Councillor Murphy.
Abstain.
Councillor O'Brien.
Against.
Councillor Peacock.
Against.
Councillor Ripton.
Against.
Councillor Shelley.
Against.
Councillor Slack.
Against.
Councillor Wayne.
Against.
Councillor Whitehead.
Against.
And Councillor Wilton.
Against.
Thank you.
Bear with us. We did talk about the motions to the end of the meeting. You can see why as well, because it might concentrate on it. Okay. So what have we got? 20, yes. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. So we've got the result of that recorded vote. In favour of Councillor G's motion, 4, against 20, and 7 abstentions. Therefore, that motion is defeated. Thank you, members. We now move on to the next item, which is item 9 on your agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. So could I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Hughes and second to Councillor Wilton. All those in favour of accepting those minutes, please raise. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's everyone. Councillor Flitter, are you? Okay, all right. Okay. And any against those? That's the minutes of the last meeting. And any abstentions then? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think.
4.
Councillor Flitter said he was abstaining as well. Are you abstaining, Councillor Flitter? Yes. Okay, yes.
4 abstains.
Could we just have a show of hands on the abstentions again, please? There's some confusion there.
5.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent. Now we move on to item 10 then, which is proposed amendments to the Constitution, the financial regulations and contract standing orders. That's page 63 on your agenda. Karen, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this report deals with proposed amendments to financial regulations and to contract standing orders. So I'm going to deal firstly with the proposed changes to financial regulations. So financial regulations were last reviewed in September 2023. I've reviewed the financial regulations to bring them up to date. The key changes are set out in the table in paragraph 2.3 of the report. I don't plan to go through each one of those, but I'll perhaps draw your attention to the most significant changes. Paragraph 3.4.7 of financial regulations is a new regulation, and that's to give me delegated authority to approve a supplementary revenue budget of up to £50,000, financed from the General Reserve or other earmarked reserve where appropriate, where the increased budget relates to business as usual and there's no change in policy. So members of the GNR committee might recall some time ago that we had to bring a report for an increase in the budget that was subsequently referred to council. And it was the budget for software. The extra amount had come about because I think we'd had to re-procure. So we were using exactly the same software. It was business as usual, but the cost had gone up. And members at the time said they felt it was a waste of the committee's time to have to approve a budget for something that was business as usual. So for those reasons, to reduce the amounts of reports going to committees with referrals to council, I'm seeking delegated authority to approve budgets up to £50,000 in those circumstances. Another change that I've made that I'm hoping will reduce reports to committees, it is described at the foot of the table as applying to various parts of financial regulations, and it's where I've mostly recommended that we increase financial thresholds from £30,000 to £50,000 across the board, and that I'm hoping again will remove the need to come to committees as much as we are doing now. There's one other part I wanted to draw to members' attention, and that's a new section in financial regulations, section 5.5, to deal with grants to external organisations. Again, this was something I think that came out of internal audit reviews, which felt that our processes were not sufficiently clear and robust, so I've included a new section for that. So those are the key changes to financial regulations. I'll hand over now, with the approval of the Chair, to my colleague, Caroline Leatherday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Chair. So, contract standing orders, they were last reviewed in September 22. They would have been reviewed sooner, only the government introduced the proposed changes to the legislation to reflect the Procurement Act 2023. As you've seen on Appendix 1, I'm not going to subject you line by line because there's quite extensive changes taken place, but I will draw your attention to the main changes driven by the legislation. So they've now introduced a centralised portal for all UK suppliers, which should envisage creating a simpler, more flexible commercial system. It should increase public procurement to new entrants, such as small businesses and social enterprises. It should embed transparency throughout the commercial life cycle so that the spending of taxpayers' money can be properly scrutinised. And it also enables the reviewing of contracts for conflicts of interest during the lifespan of the contract. More briefly, the internal changes are we've raised the threshold for budget holder authorisation from 2,500 to 5,000, and the removal of the requirement of a business case to CLT for approval of a framework, just to simplify the process and take some of the pressure off the officers, and again the workload of CLT. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So you've had that introduction there. Are there any questions to our council officers? Councillor Wilson.
Just on the standing orders and purchasing, how are we rolling out the training for that, and are we putting any KPIs in around it to make sure it's monitored, or are the KPIs already in place?
There's not KPIs in relation to training, but the training is scheduled in the coming weeks for all senior officers and budget holders. If we feel that we need to review it and do more, we'll take it on a case-by-case basis to see how well, because some people are quite confident in the processes already. It's the ones that deal with it on a very ad hoc basis that we want to make sure that they're fully understanding of the new procedures.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions at all? Okay, in which case can we have a proposal?
Can I propose, please?
Thank you. Councillor Wilton, and a second, Councillor Buttle. Thank you. That's great. So we're now moving into debate on this. Would you like to speak to this at all?
Please, if I could. I think one of the things that I've noticed in the finance regulations update that I draw members' attention to is 1.211, the financial risk assessment. So no item should be placed before the council committees without obtaining the Director of Resources assessment of financial implications. I think that's something that would be wise for us all to consider when we're bringing papers forward of the impact that we'd like to have on a very sound business plan at the moment, but we know that can change quickly. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. Councillor Buttle, as seconder.
Karen, I noticed that we had a couple of motions to council earlier where there may have been fairly severe financial commitments being made without your input. Would that be dealt with in here?
So the item that Councillor Wilton has just referred you to just would require any item brought before council to have a financial assessment. I would also hope that it would have a legal assessment. The idea behind that is that when members make decisions, they should be well informed of the consequences of the cost of it, whether it's legal. We should also perhaps consider whether there's capacity to deliver the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Karen. Just reminding members we're in debate at the moment. So we've had the proposal second. Does anybody else wish to debate this, or can we move straight to the vote? Okay, we have two recommendations in front of us, one on financial regulations, one on the contract standing orders. Are members happy to take those together? Yeah, okay. Can we have a show of hands in favour then of those recommendations, please? Any against? No. Any abstentions? No. Thank you very much. In which case we move swiftly on then to item 11, which is the revenue budget monitoring for Q3, pages 205 in your documents there. So this is an update. Karen, could you take us through this, please?
Thank you, Chair. This provides an update on the forecast outturn position at Q3. So it's based on spending up to the 31st of December, but with estimations of what that might look like by the end of the financial year. So the report indicates that there's a forecast underspend of £1.5 million, which is a little bit more than was reported at the end of Q2, when we're reporting just under £1.4 million. The main reasons for the underspend are set out in the table in paragraph 1.3. Again, I won't go through all of those, but the most significant items relate to the overachievement of investment income, where investment interest rates continue to be higher than we'd budgeted for. There are several items relating to the waste contract that total over £550,000, and they were unexpected when we did the budget. The reasons for that are shown beneath the table. There's £247,000 underspending on staffing budgets. That reflects the vacancies, and it is net of additional spend on interim staff and additional recruitment costs. and there's an overachievement of car parking income of £163,000. The finance team has worked with relevant budget holders to discuss those under and overspends that are shown in the table. And one of the things they've tried to establish is whether the underspends are one-off in nature or whether they're recurring. And that work took place towards the end of December and early January, and any significant ongoing underspends were built into the budget for 25-26. That was approved a few weeks ago. So paragraph 1.19 of the report shows how the underspend of £1.5 million is proposed to be dealt with. Most of that has already been approved, either when we did the Q2 report or as part of the budget process. So we'll be reporting again to Council in July on the outturn for 24-25. And I ask members to approve the 3 report recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, questions to Karen on this one? Councillor Whitehead.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Karen. Excellent report as always. So we're in the situation again, aren't we, where we've got a significant underspend, and when I look at the reserve position, it's £15 million in reserves, according to your table. And what I find really troubling about that is I look at my own community, I look at communities right across the Dales. I talk to people all the time and they tell me about the things they don't get, or the services not up to the standard that they want them to be, or more investment into our parks, or more investment into our estate. And I find it really embarrassing that we're sitting on £15 million when we could be doing all those things. And now it's become even more important because potentially, most likely, in 2 years' time, we will not exist as an authority. And we have an obligation to all our council taxpayers in the Derbyshire Dales to have spent the money they have invested in our services. If we get to the end of this authority's life and we have any reserves left in our pot, it will be an absolute scandal, because all that will do is that will go into the new authority, and the money that we've all paid as residents and all our communities has paid will then go into a new authority offsetting social care costs and other authorities' costs when we've got stuff to put right in our own area and we've got limited time to do it. So what I want to start to see in these budgets is that reserve coming right down. And so when we get to next year's budget, we should be not planning to have any reserve, and we should be spending that money as quickly as we can to invest in our communities. Because I think one thing that we fear with the local government reorganisation.
Councillor Whitehead, I think we're moving into a bit of a speech here. Have we got an actual question?
Oh, sorry, Chair. I'm just sort of doing what everyone else does, so nice that you call me out on it.
My apologies.
No, that's all right.
You have a
so I
chance
will
again in a
finish.
second. Yeah.
But I just think, don't we have a right, have an obligation to treat our taxpayers' money with respect? And we need to start using it. So, Karen, why are we driving up such high reserves year on year on year? And when are we going to start driving it down?
Thank you. So I'd refer you partly to the reports that are presented to the council meeting on the 3rd of March. And you might recall that in those reports, I showed that we have reserves for specific purposes. So we do have around £3.5 million in the general reserve, but we also have a lot of the reserves are for specific things. For example, the replacement of waste vehicles. Now, those are going to be needed whether it's Derbyshire Dales buying them or whether it's a new authority buying them. But we'll need waste vehicles in 2028. Other reserves are set aside for Section 106 agreements. Again, those can only be spent on specific things within the Derbyshire Dales. So that will continue, whichever authority is providing the service, because they relate to planning agreements. So that will continue as well. So we do have high levels of reserves at the moment. The other big issue we've got facing us, where we need to maintain reserves, is to do with the proposed changes to funding arrangements. Again, if you look at the medium-term financial plan for the next few years, yes, we're okay for 25-26, but when funding reforms come in 26-27, we face significant budget gaps. So by the time we get to 2028, if you look at the plan, you'll see that our reserves are already significantly reduced. We do need to monitor them, and you've got a good point. In the past, we've had a history of underspends each year, but my approach is to do prudent budgeting, especially for income, because I'd rather be in a situation where I'm telling you we've got an underspend, what do you want to do with it, than coming to you and saying, oh, we've overspent, what are we going to cut, what are we going to not do next time? And that's the approach that I've always taken.
So I'll just come back, Chair. So I completely appreciate it, Karen. You know what? If we weren't ending as an authority, I'd probably sort of buy into that quite a lot. But you can't give me a guarantee that High Peak have saved money for new bin lorries.
Yeah,
or that
point of order. We're getting into debate, and this is not a
straight.
debate about revenue. It's about a net revenue. It's a debate about capital budgets.
Thank you,
and it's totally inappropriate to this point. So can we end this and get back to the substantive?
Yes. We have questions from members at the moment, and there is. Sorry, Councillor Whitehead, you have a chance again in debate. Councillor O'Brien.
Oh, sorry, it is a question.
Oh, what's the question?
I was just wondering whether Karen could give us a guarantee whether other authorities that we may merge in are also building up similar reserves.
Chair, this is not about revenue. This is about capital budget.
It's about reserves. It's about the reserves.
We're not talking about reserves here. We're talking about
unfortunately,
net revenue.
Unfortunately, it's in the report.
Councillor White had a chance to bring this up when we talked about
Councillor Hughes.
When we talked about capital budgets, when we talked about reserves in the last meeting, as Karen said.
I look forward to next time you speak, David, and I'll look forward to speaking all over you.
The question, please.
So the question, Karen, is, can you give us a guarantee that the other potential authorities that we merge with are also taking the prudent approach to saving for future bin lorries and future expenses? Or might we get to a situation where we are the only authority who have done it, and then the Derbyshire Dales council taxpayers are then paying disproportionately for the lorries of the new authority? Can you give us that guarantee?
I can't give you that guarantee at the moment because I don't know what approach other authorities have taken. But the plan is, as you'll hear later on the other agenda item on local government reorganisation, the plan is to set up working groups of officers from each authority. Finance is one of those. So that's clearly something we can look at, hopefully in the coming months, and we can take that into account when we do our future financial planning.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien, you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And my question relates to some of the concerns which Councillor Whitehead has raised, which Karen will know I've also raised on previous occasions. 10% of our budget being underspent is a sizable proportion, and I think, Karen, you're right in saying, I think you're right, perhaps you can confirm this is a recurrent theme over certainly the past 6 years that I've been on the council. My question, though, is whether, in your opinion, this 10% underspend has a deleterious impact on the services provided by the council to its residents. So is there actually an impact that residents feel from this 10% underspend?
Yes, there probably is. I can't quantify that impact, but I have frequently explained to fellow members of CLT and budget holders that one of the risks of having budgets higher than they need to be is that effectively you're stopping other new projects from being delivered. So there is, yes.
Councillor Hughes, you had a question.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much for the answers, Karen. I'm just looking at the heading to total quarter 3 forecast underspend table on page 207. And I'm wondering whether that title is actually leading to the confusion that Councillor O'Brien and others are having. Because I can see overachievement of income of well over £1 million in that table, and that is not underspend, that is additional income that we weren't anticipating. And, you know, overachievement is a good thing, surely. So it allows us to do other things. So can I ask whether this is an appropriate heading, and it actually should read net revenue rather than underspend, because it's not underspend?
We'll give that some thought before we bring the next report.
Thank you. Can we change the term overachievement to better than expected performance? Because overachievement has negative connotations like stress and burnout and other things that I've noticed from an AI bit of research on Google.
Thank you for that one. Councillor G, you have a question?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Just to clarify, this 15 million, is that earmarked? Was it
Are you referring
Councillor
to
Whitehead
the reserves?
mentioned 15 million in reserves.
Yeah.
Did you? I think you explained that was earmarked. Is it part of that towards?
Yes. So that the details of the reserves are given in Appendix 3, and the 15 million that I believe he was referring to does show the balance on earmarked reserves.
Right. And second question is, if we have got an underspend, could we spend some of that during the next 2 years in Bakewell on the recreation ground, please? When it comes to the corporate plan, I'd like to have a nice new pavilion and some new tennis court, resurface it. Could we do that, please, in the next 2 years? So at least when we do leave this council, Bakewell sees something that has been spent on it. So it could be as nice as Hall Lees Park in Matlock, please.
So, first of all, members have already approved what to do with the 1.5 million from 2024-25, and that's shown in paragraph 1.19. For the potential ongoing underspends for 25-26, they've already been reflected in the budget. In terms of what can be done with Bakewell, at Bakewell, I think there are already some items in the capital programme, such as new splash pads. There are also items in the programme such as relining car parks, and I recently visited Bakewell and saw the car park at Granby Road, has been relayed recently. So the council is investing in Bakewell.
All right. Okay. I don't see any more hands for questions, so we are now looking for a proposer. Councillor Wilton. Please. And a seconder, Councillor Hughes. Okay. Councillor Wilton, would you like to speak on this?
Just say thank you for the report, and just to remember, this is just a report on the revenue. It's, you know, if we do get lost in what we're going to do with everything else, it's not the right place. So find the right report, the right meeting room, whether that's GNR or the right report that's coming later, and then we'll find that there and we can pick that up there and stuff. And we have done that, where we have moved some of the ring fencing around within what's on that 15 million reserves to sort of meet our needs and requirements going forward. And also just to remind people, a lot of that is CapEx as well, and on the CapEx expenditure, and a lot of that's going to drop off things like Ashbourne Reborn. So when that clears out, that level of risk pot's going to clear right down quite lowly, which again is on Karen's forecasting if you read through it.
Councillor Hughes, do you want to speak now?
Yes, please. Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody who has contributed to the overachievement of income in the garden waste. Thank you for doing that. Investment income, thank you very much for that. What else have we got? We've got overachievement of car parking income. Thank you very much for that too. Let's hope that all of those continue, because they will provide us with additional income that we can spend on other things. I'm always disappointed with the reports, financial reports from the council, because the good things are in red ink rather than in black ink. And, you know, if you look at corporate accounts, they generally are the opposite way around, and so I get a bit confused about what's good and what's bad. So thank you very much, Karen, for an extremely good and interesting report.
Okay. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Karen, for your prudent approach to the finances. Those of us who attended the financial briefings prior to this budget, you know, we admire your skill and your expertise. I'm sure we've all got a shopping list of things we'd all like in our areas, but thank you for answering everybody's questions, and thank you for guiding those purse strings so well.
Okay. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. I want to support the implications of Councillor G's question, actually, and remind colleagues that there are other parts of the district than Matlock and Ashbourne. And I do think that members should give the opportunity for the council to consider investing in those communities. I think if the summit of our aspirations for Bakewell is a new tarmac car park with white lines on, it doesn't actually say much for our ambitions for that town.
Okay. I don't see any other hands wishing to engage in debate. So we have a proposer, we have a seconder. You have 3 recommendations in front of you, 2 of which are basically to note and approve. The third one is to agree the transfer to reserves as detailed. Can we take all 3 of those items together, please? All right, in which case, can I have a show of hands in favour, please? That looks complete. And any against? No. And any abstentions? No. So that's no comment. Thank you very much, members. So we're on to item 12 now, which is climate change and biodiversity workstream and capacity. Ashley, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. For those of you who don't know Molly is our Climate Change and Biodiversity Officer. It is a first time at Council, so please be kind. So on to the report. The purpose of this report is to align the resources of the service to meet the ambitions of the most recent corporate plan. In relation to climate change and biodiversity, and also to create greater oversight of those objectives outlined in the corporate plan. There's a very clear focus on climate change and biodiversity in that plan, but that has resulted in a significant increase in the number of objectives outlined in the plan. There's been some excellent work undertaken and delivered by officers and members in relation to these 2 areas. Officers, members, past and present, and what we're aiming to do is to build on that. But in order to do that, we need to increase the capacity and the resource to meet that demand. I'm not going to go through the report in detail because members have had chance to digest this, but the officer team believe that there are different approaches that we can take and that are needed to deliver on the objectives in the corporate plan. And that is a mix of an increase of officer resource and capacity, as noted in recommendations 1 and 2 of the report, as well as the provision of funds to commission works and or contractors, consultants, etc. And finally, following discussions with the officers and member representatives of both the Climate Change Working Group and the Biodiversity Subcommittee, which have representations from each of the parties, we are recommending that these 2 groups are merged because we believe that that will help with oversight, understanding and input, as well as enable us to explore further opportunities in relation to this area of work. I appreciate the sums that are being asked for are not insignificant, but the work stream does give us an opportunity to leave a very positive legacy for this council. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Hobson first.
Thank you. Pleased to meet you, Molly. Ash, I'm not sure whether it's you. I've had some conversation with Vicky since Baslow Parish Council last night. They were talking about electric vehicle charging points. Seem to be waiting an awful long time for these to sort of come, and particularly in this rural area, it's really difficult. So can you give us any positive news on the car park charges.
Thank you, Councillor Hobson. So the EV charging is actually being led by Derbyshire County Council. So that is an ongoing piece of work, and a number of our car parks have been looked at, and Baslow being one of them, I think. That is progressing. As to timescales, I don't know. We are involved in those meetings, and yeah, that will be led by them.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Welcome to Derbyshire Dales, and thank you for all this report. I've got two questions. One is on the solar farm. When the original feasibility study associated with the solar farm was done, we also looked at car parks and putting solar panels on car parks, either as an alternative or in addition. It was found that it was slightly more expensive to put them on a car park, and therefore the payback period was, I think, a couple of years longer than it was if it was put on a green field. However, I don't know about other members, but I prefer to see solar panels over car parks rather than green fields. So I was wondering if we are looking at a solar farm, could we also look at the car parks and the opportunity for putting solar panels on car parks as well? That's my first question. The other one is about air quality, and I noticed there are a number of actions associated with air quality. Now, I also read recently that certainly in conurbations, some conurbations, wood-burning stoves are now a greater concern than car emissions in terms of particulates and the impact on individuals. And I was wondering whether we would be able to extend what we're doing with monitoring car pollution so that we also monitor the pollution from stoves in houses. There are areas where, I mean, we live high above Matlock and we can see the smoke coming from certain chimneys quite regularly. So we think that in those areas there's likely to be higher levels of particulates and other emissions. And I think there are quite strong regulations now around stoves and the fuels that are burnt in stoves. And I think there's a need for some work in that area. So can I ask about extending the air quality surveys to cover that as well?
Chair, I'll take the point on the solar farm and the car parks if I can, and in short, they're almost two separate pieces of work for us. So the solar farm is outlined in the corporate plan, and it is a separate project that we'll be working towards. The solar panels for car parks was part of the car park review for those members who were involved in that and recall the report that came in I think it was in December. So that, I believe, is phase 3 of the car park review. So it is covered, and there is a commitment to do that, as well as the solar farm.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, we are working with a community energy group as well, who have been funded to do a feasibility study on car parks, including the 3 surrounding the town hall, and they're just in stakeholder consultation phase. So that there is sort of ongoing work on that.
Thank you.
In regard to the second question, I think that might be a matter for environmental health. It's not an area of work in my service area.
Thank you. Before I hand over to Councillor Chapman, can I just check? I mean, I've seen reference very recently to Derbyshire Dales Community Energy looking to extend solar over car parks as well. Are we in communication with them? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Thanks and welcome, Molly. Good to see you. Okay. Yeah. In which I think is Appendix 1, the corporate plan aims for a thriving community. In Block 2, we've got the future of agriculture and land management. And item CPJ 154, promote and support schemes provided by DEFRA and other agencies for sustainable farming and land management. Where will the funds for that particular point be diverted to? Because under Keir Starmer, there won't be any schemes to promote and support. Slightly facetious.
I'm not sure that's an answer we can give, Chair.
Okay, I think that was perhaps a rhetorical question. Councillor Buttle.
Are we ready to move out of the questions?
Well, that's up to you.
In that case, I'd like to recommend we accept and take these recommendations forward.
That's a proposal then. Do we have a second?
It's a proposal.
We have a whole host of people.
I think maybe Matt had some questions. No. Okay, sorry.
Okay. Councillor Slack, I think, caught my eye as the seconder there.
Yeah.
Okay.
The solar array, that's fantastic news. The bringing together of the biodiversity group and the climate change group, that's going to be great because it's really good people and they've got just loads of expertise and lots of interest. And that's just an absolute winner from my point of view. I'm kind of a little bit sad that we lost our tempo over the last year, and that's partly my fault for not really following up the loss of Tim Braund, and I should have done more. And I do apologise for that. The work that we're doing so far with fuel poverty and the HUG scheme, like taking all these people out of generations of people out of fuel poverty, that is just fantastic. Altogether, it's been a pretty cheerful period, this 6 years that I've been here. I turned up without a clue. I've still got no clue, but it seems to be working anyway. And I do welcome the Green Awards thing. The Green Rewards, not Green Awards. Green Awards thing where we're actually getting some outreach into the community, where we're providing a little bit of support and information. And, there's just so many things. I could go on a bit longer, but we do have a long evening. So if we could move this, I'd love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Peter, you wish to speak?
Just a few comments. Yes, I agree. It's going from strength to strength, diversity. In Wordsworth, while the Wordsworth really gone from strength to strength, they've even bought a new field now and planting it, and it's really going from strength to strength all over the district. So I'm very pleased about this, and may it continue. Thank you.
Councillor Martin O'Brien. Sorry. Sorry. Burfoot, my apologies. I'm mixing the two of you together there. Yes. Yeah. You know who I mean.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'd also like to welcome Molly Gorman as Chair of C&E Committee. I'll be seeing quite a lot of her, no doubt, in the future. But this is one of the... I welcome this report. It's one of the councils and the PA's three main priorities alongside the local plan, strangely enough, and affordable housing, both discussed tonight earlier. It's our local plan, our corporate plan, of course. And in other words, our commitment to mitigation of climate change by 2030. It's a subject that many of us have been urging should be promoted for many years. In fact, I can remember when I was a mere Matlock Town Councillor about 20 years ago, we had a sort of climate officer here, Peter Cork, I think he was called. That's right, yes. Agenda 21, that was it, yes. And I had a lot of discussions with him at the time on similar subjects, really, but it was in its early days nationally at that stage. But we did do some projects, I think, both as a town council and district council at that time. But I'm pleased to see that the work's been well financed. As you probably read, 180,000 over 3 years to finance the post of climate change project lead, and a supplementary budget of 23,000. A shortfall of funding to retain the energy efficiency officer. That's a very good, important role, actually, for the next 3 years. As you can see, there's also a further supplementary revenue budget of 25,000 from the corporate plan reserve to deliver our climate change and biodiversity objectives in the corporate plan. Well, we are disappointed, I think. I think officers are disappointed, as you see in the report at 214 to 217, that on the Warm Homes local grant was so oversubscribed nationally. Therefore, we haven't been granted as much as was hoped for. In fact, it's only about 20% of what we expected overall. But anyway, no doubt there'll be other opportunities to apply for funding in the future. Now, in terms of the future of this subject or this work on the District Council, I would have preferred to see this topic upgraded from a working group to an official subcommittee, but I am pleased that, given the obvious overlap of the two subjects, the two strands, if you like, of this being merged. So as chair of the C&E committee, I look forward to seeing the working group's recommendations coming to that service committee for resolution in due course. Thank you.
Councillor Peter O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. I've been called worse things than Martin in the past, and I'm sure I will be in future. First thing I want to say, actually, I endorse what Councillor Hobson's saying about electric vehicle charging points. This issue has been around for 4 years, and we've made very little progress. I know you're a county councillor, Sue, but I don't have a great deal of confidence in Derbyshire County Council making rapid progress either. So I do think we might want to consider bringing this initiative back in-house. I think that's something we'll discuss. But what I really want to say is I really want to congratulate Ashley and Molly for the new dynamism that they've brought to climate change and biodiversity. They've completely reinvigorated the topic. They've done what we as an administration said we wanted to do, that's to bring our green agenda, along with our affordable housing agenda, right central to what we're about as an administration. But they've grasped the nettle to say you can't do that simply by writing it in a corporate plan. You have to invest up front in the resources necessary to deliver it. And I think perhaps there's a lesson for all of us there that you have to invest up front to deliver your priorities. But really well done to you two, and I really hope you'll get the support from the new combined working group over the next couple of years.
Councillor Buckler.
Yeah, a couple of points on this. So the report, Ashley and I have had various correspondence about this. The report is very heavy on the climate change, and obviously one of the things in the report is it talks about the biodiversity subcommittee. We don't have a biodiversity subcommittee. We have a biodiversity working group because we used to have a biodiversity subcommittee, and it was changed to a working group. So this is the merging of two working groups. I think there are really good, as we discussed in the meeting that we had, I think there are really good reasons for discussing it, because one of the things that isn't being addressed, which absolutely is addressed through our nature recovery plan, is around climate change adaptation. And nature recovery and climate change adaptation are critically important. And so we need to be doing far more about that as a country, and I think that this will help with that. So recognising the value of nature-based solutions will help to deliver both aspects of this. I think as well, I completely support the investment request, because I think this is really an investment request, and giving Molly a team to look at however that works, to look at. This is an area of work which is fundable. We can get external funding for this, but we need some capacity to look for that external funding. If you're trying to do the 28 objectives or 18 objectives or whatever it is in the plan, there is no capacity to look for additional funding to support this. This is a good investment to deliver more and more of this work, which we can absolutely do, and we should absolutely be supporting if we can.
Thank you. Councillor Butcher, did you wish to? Okay. All right. Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, very briefly, Chair. I just want to congratulate the work on this and welcome Molly. It just shows by merging these two groups together and tackling the issues under one work stream is really it's showing our environmental commitment on this council, and it's also strengthening the PA's corporate objectives by getting that green thread through every policy that we have. and that is very important. I just do think that we have to do some probably extra comms on this one and make sure the message is getting out there. And I'm sure that Jim is listening and is very keen to help out in that department. But I just will say that I'm very approachable. If you see me in the office at all, do come and have a word, because Ash will tell you, I very often walk around the building and talk to you in the office. So, well, this is really good, and I really want this to succeed.
Okay, thank you. In which case, we've had a proposer and a seconder. I think we're going to move to a vote on this. Could we have all those in favour, please show? That's 5 recommendations, of course, yeah. And all those against? Are there any abstentions? No. Okay. Well, thank you, members. That brings us neatly to 8:30. You've been very patient, and we've had some very good discussions so far. Do we have support for another half-hour extension and a 10-minute, or, well, let's call it a 7.5-minute break? All those in favour of a break and an extension? Any against? 1, 2. Okay.
I'm going to say to Nick, if he talks to me.
By my reckoning, then, we're on to item 13 on your agenda, so we're well over halfway, you'll be pleased to know, pages 235 to 238. Paul, over to you, I think.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. A very straightforward report. This is seeking the appointment of two of the Council's statutory officers in the form of the Monitoring Officer and also the Data Protection Officer. The two appointments are identified in recommendations 1 and 2, and nothing further to add.
Thank you. Any questions on this one at all from members? Councillor Hughes.
Chair, I'd like to move this.
Thank you. And we have a seconder from Councillor Buckler. Thank you. Okay. If there's no further debate on this, then shall we move straight to a vote? Do you wish to say anything at all before we do that? Oh, sorry. Councillor Butcher? No? You were just, sorry, you were voting. Thank you. Okay, we are voting then, yes. All those in favour? And all those against? No, no abstentions. That is carried. Thank you very much. It's those two recommendations. On to item 14 then, please, which is the Members' Code of Conduct. Barbara.
Thank you, Chair. Members, it's I think this report is basically a tidying up exercise. Members considered revised code of conduct just over a year ago and resolved to adopt the Local Government Association Model Code of Conduct. But when I actually look at what we've got in the Constitution, the report that went to the meeting actually didn't contain the whole of the local government code. In particular, it didn't include the parts of the code to do with the statutory provisions for the registration and disclosure of disclosable pecuniary interests, which are, it's the legal position members of this council comply with that, and I think it should be in the codes for clarity and openness. And also, there's no provision in the code in that paper relating to other registrable interests. They're the sort of interests which previously were referred to as prejudicial interests. So they would be things like, say, if members of the planning committee and a case comes up for consideration where maybe the applicant is a member's neighbour or business partner or granddaughter or something like that, members declare that, but it's not a disclosable pecuniary interest because it's not the member's husband, wife or partner. And so all I'm suggesting that we do is include the Local Government Association provisions for that sort of thing, and that's really all the report does. It just tidies up, for the avoidance of doubt, the actual code of conduct for members that we follow here.
Okay, thank you. We've got a question from Councillor Wayne.
Well, it's a question in a bit of a guise of an observation. But basically, when we do these reports again, would it be possible just to, any alterations, just put in a different colour? Because, it just makes it a lot easier for us to see what amendments, we've read it, but just what amendments have been made. It just makes it easier for us, if that's possible, please. Thank you.
We can do, Councillor Wayne. The reason I didn't in this case is purely because it's a couple of additional sections, so we're not changing the text of anything. We're just actually including the whole code, and I've referred to that in the report. But I take your point on board.
Councillor Buckler.
Yeah, it's a question about the recommendation. The council adopt the revised code of conduct for members as contained in Appendix 2 in this report. Is there? Am I missing? I can't find Appendix 2. There's the code of conduct for members, and then there's two Appendix A's and two Appendix B's.
It's a fair point.
Oh, A and B, not 1 and 2. Yeah, well, we can amend that.
Perhaps we should just say as appended to this report.
Yeah.
Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. Can I'd like to propose this, but if it helps members, pages 243 to 253 are what was before, pages 255 to 268 are what will be, and really there's just a couple of significant changes, and perhaps Barbara could correct me if my assumption is wrong. The original code has a paragraph shifted, and that's why the pagination differs between the two versions. So if you look on page 256, above the Nolan principles, you've got 5 bullet points. They actually came after the Nolan principles in the previous version, and that's why the two don't quite run together in terms of pagination. And then the important bit comes at the end, where you've got registering interests, which is on page 256, Appendix A, that's new. And then you've got essentially the same Appendix B as we had before. And Barbara will correct me if I'm wrong.
I think that's right, yes. Yeah, it's basically including those extra sections.
So could I propose that we go for the new version?
Yes, your mastery of the subject is noted. Yeah, okay, so we've got a proposal then from Councillor Dobbs. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Wilton. Okay, we're moving into debate. Is there any debate on this at all? No, we're going straight to a vote then, I believe. All those, again, in favour for this recommendation, please show. And any against? And any abstentions? No. Okay. I believe that's carried then. Thank you. Thank you, members. So we're now on to item 15, which is the interim proposal for local government, LGR, reorganisation. We've got an invitation here to Barbara to comment on this, because I know 2 members have opted to step out of the meeting at this point, but we have a recommendation that, in fact, members are able to participate, don't we?
Yes, that's correct, Chairman. I appreciate that not all monitoring officers might come to the same conclusion, but my firm conclusion is that there's no reason why county council members, so members of this council or also county council members, might not participate and vote on this item. This item has not gone before the county council. It's a report that's coming to this council. There is no conflict of interest that I can see as far as members of this council voting on it.
Thank you for that clarification. In which case, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So members will recall that I did bring a report to Council on the 30th of January, which made members aware of the government's intention to pursue local government reorganisation as part of the devolution white paper. At that same meeting, members gave authority to myself and the leader of the council to participate in various discussions with other colleague authorities across Derbyshire, including Derby City and indeed Derbyshire County Council, and the intention was that I would bring a further updating report to you on matters as necessary and appropriate. Those discussions have continued with those partner authorities in the period since the end of January, and the proposal you have before you this evening is one where you are being asked to consider the submission of Derbyshire Dales's part in this joint submission to the Minister on Friday of this week in order to meet the deadline imposed by the government for the receipt of interim proposals. The submission has been formulated with support and assistance by KPMG, who have been brought on board to assist partner authorities with this, and the appendix that you have is the interim submission which has been formulated as a result of that engagement. Due to the need to publish this report and also to meet that deadline of the 21st, I am seeking some degree of delegated authority to make any minor or technical amendments to the document that's in front of you, because simultaneously to this meeting this evening, a number of other colleague authorities across Derbyshire are also meeting. So it may well be that there are some refinements that need to be made to the final proposal, and I'm seeking authority to agree those with the leader of the council on our behalf in order that that document can be submitted. I don't intend to go in great detail on the issue, Chair. There's plenty of detail in the report. It outlines the background as to why this option has been put forward in terms of creating 2 unitary authorities across Derbyshire, which is the preferred model of the districts and boroughs. Clearly there is an alternative proposal being advanced by the County Council, and that will be submitted also by the 21st of March deadline, and it will be for the Minister and the Government to determine where matters proceed from there on. I think the key point that I do want to emphasise, though, is that this proposal has been formulated with community at its heart. We want to ensure that the authorities that may be created as part of local government reorganisation are of an appropriate size. They are capable of delivering, they are capable of being responsive, and they build upon the many strengths that individual districts and boroughs currently have in the services that we provide. So that is the case for change which has been developed, and I'm happy to take any questions from members on that, Chair.
Would anyone like to start on this? Councillor Maelstrom.
Thanks. Just a very quick one, actually. Has there been any discussion about where the offices of the proposed North Derbyshire Council might be?
No, those discussions haven't taken place in that sort of detail yet.
Councillor Whitehead.
I think the question's just left my head completely. So
I might come back to you.
I might come back to you in a minute.
Okay. Councillor Ball.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, I've read this. Initially, it starts off that the County Council were involved, but obviously none of this is, and you've already stated that they've put their own proposal in. That being, have they included the districts within their bit, and are we involving them? Because as far as I'm concerned, with all of it, I would like to see a unitary of keeping Derbyshire fully together, irrespective. We don't want rural going into urban, and that's what will possibly happen if it's segregated and chopped up to the top end of Hathersage and the likes, going up into Sheffield and the likes, and then down south into Burton and Staffordshire. So can I just ask if we are both being involved in both of the proposals put forward with county and us?
If I can take the second point first, there are no changes to the boundaries of Derbyshire. This proposal, which has been formulated by districts and boroughs, builds upon the existing district boundaries as the building blocks. So there is no part of any district or borough going beyond the boundary of the county of Derbyshire. That's one of the main strengths of this bid. In terms of the county council's proposal, their proposal is that all districts and boroughs are absorbed into a single large unitary, with the exception of Derby City. So there are significant issues in terms of scale, in terms of geography, in terms of service delivery. The county council have their reasons for proposing that. District and boroughs leaders and chief execs don't agree with those, hence the reason why this proposal has come forward. Now, as I say in the report, we have reached out to the county council. We've invited them to participate in our discussions, but that invitation has been rejected.
Okay. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you. My brain fog has lifted. So, Paul, my question, and it's probably the question I've been asked most about this when we've been talking about this across our communities, which is the connection to local democracy. How will these proposals maintain that link? And it's interesting, really, because before I came a district councillor, I'd always thought that it seemed three-tiered authority seemed like a waste of money, and that a unitary would make the ways. I'd always lived in a unitary. But I think since becoming a district councillor and actually seeing that connection directly into the community and how you make a difference in people's lives is really, really important. And I think my only fear about any proposal to make councils bigger is that you start to lose that local connection. So I just wondered whether that's been part of the conversations, particularly about ward sizes and representation. I just want to know that that's being held sacrosanct, really, in terms of how we develop the future plans.
You're absolutely right to raise that issue, Councillor Whitehead, and that is a debate which has been taking place across the whole of the country in terms of districts and boroughs, because there is a a criteria which government has identified which indicates that new unitaries should be around 500,000 in population. Clearly that is significantly larger than any district at the moment, and is also significantly larger than most unitaries that are currently in existence. The issue of democratic accountability and maintaining the closeness is something which at the conference Councillor Flitter and I attended last week, the Minister said was important, and it's for districts to try and determine with their partner organisations what that might look like. So whilst the 500,000 figure has been one which has been held pretty firm to date, there does appear to be some relaxation in order to ensure that the geography that you propose as part of your bid maintains that democratic accountability as much as possible. But there's no doubt about it, there will be fewer councillors, you will be representing more constituents, and clearly across the new unitary authorities to be created, overall the number of councillors will be significantly less than that which exists in the individual districts and boroughs.
Thank you. Councillor Wayne.
Thank you. The decision by Derby City Council recently, what does the impact, is there likely to be any impact on the timescales for submission, and will they affect us at all? Thank you.
Okay, so for members who may not be aware, Derby City's meeting took place last week and their council didn't approve this proposal in its current form. In terms of our ability to submit this proposal, if indeed you agree to it this evening, it doesn't require unanimous support across existing districts and boroughs and unitaries in order for a proposal to be submitted. Individual councils can submit their own proposals should they so wish. The indications are from Derby City are that discussions are continuing. They continue to participate at an officer level in this process, and I understand that they are due to meet again very shortly to reconsider their position. So the amendment that will go forward on Friday is that it won't state that Derby City are in full support of this, because they haven't made that decision yet, but that they are continuing to engage with us.
Paul, do we know why they were concerned?
I understand that they wanted to have further detailed consideration regarding options around population size relative to Derby City's potential boundaries and how it may grow and expand, because that is one of the key concerns that they have had for quite some time.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Linthwaite.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate I'm probably asking a question that's a bit preempting, really. One of the things that shocked me about this was the table on page 8, looking at the amount of debt that any new authority is going to be inheriting. And I wondered what consideration has been given to how that might be managed going forward.
Okay, so the key point to bear in mind there is that those figures are very much assumptions, and they are of the magnitude they are because we have incorporated Derbyshire County Council's current financial position, which clearly, if the county council and districts and boroughs are dissolved, effectively their liabilities and assets get shared amongst the authorities that are created. It comes back to a point that Councillor White had raised earlier. So you not only take the asset, but you do take the liabilities as well. But until we get into the more detailed next stage of formulating the final proposal, we won't know exactly what those figures will look like. So these are very much best estimates at the moment.
That's a very good question, isn't it? Because the county council also has a liability as well. And is the understanding that that would be shared across the new unitaries?
The indications from government at the moment is that there is no additional funding going to be coming forward to authorities to go through this process. The process of reorganisation has to be funded from your own resources, and the assets and liabilities will also be shared amongst the newly created authorities.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien, I think you had a question.
I did, thank you, Chair. There's a couple of questions, actually. Paul, our district currently has a relationship with the Sheffield City region through, I think it's associate membership of the of the region, and that reflects the strong economic transport and housing links with the Sheffield City region. Now, we haven't been able to benefit as much as we would have liked from that relationship because of the issue with the, what was it, the Derbyshire, what it was, LLP. Have any discussions or consideration been given in this proposal to a future relationship with the Sheffield City region? That's my, because if not, I think that would be a loss. And my second question is related in some ways, in that there is benefit to having. I mean, there's a lot of romanticism about being a comfortable rural authority, but I think there are benefits in having a critical mass within an authority. Do you have a view as to the benefits or otherwise of being associated with Derby City?
If I can take the first point, because of the very short timescale that we've been given to prepare and submit this document, those detailed discussions haven't taken place yet. Our relationship with the Sheffield City region would, however, be maintained because that is currently enshrined in legislation. I think the key issue is how the various mayoral combined authorities around us, including our own, actually work better together to deliver the results and the improvements that some of our perhaps northern communities would seek from Sheffield City region. So I think that is certainly a discussion which does need to take place, but it's not taken place as part of this current proposal. In terms of Derbyshire Dale's relationship with Derby City, I don't have a particular view on that. All I can say is that the discussion that has taken place around how these two unitaries could be created has very much revolved around service resilience, around natural areas of growth. There is a need to balance the economic value of the areas, because clearly you don't want to create a disproportionate relationship between two new unitary structures, and that's why the proposal in this particular document feels like it does do that, particularly when you look at the GVA and the tax base and the population. Working on the existing district boundaries, you do get two fairly equal unitaries created from it, which is certainly not the case with the County Council's proposal.
Okay. Councillor Butler.
Could I just come back, Chair, then on the first point, can we have an assurance that discussion will take place at an early stage during the second part of this process?
I'm very happy to feed that observation into the discussions which will be taking place, yes.
Matt.
Yeah, it's following up on Councillor Whitehead's point. Are there any conversations, but one of the obvious mechanisms for maintaining local accountability is through town and parish councils. Are there any conversations being had about how we can empower or professionalise town and parish councils to provide more support to a larger authority? Because then you still get similar levels of local accountability, whilst only having sort of two tiers of government.
Yes, Chair, and that certainly is included within the devolution white paper that was published just before Christmas. The intention is that parish and town councils could potentially do more. Clearly they have to have the resilience to do more. They've got to have the financial capability to do more. But the intention is that they would continue to operate, and that they could, in fact, take on some of the service delivery aspects currently undertaken by districts and boroughs.
Councillor G.
Thanks. Looking at this, I know you've mentioned I've mentioned this before at a previous meeting, about the government guidelines in terms of the 500,000 population, but that wasn't designed to be looking to find a council with 500,000 people. It was designed to be a minimum level. Did any serious discussions ever take place with the possibility of having one council for the whole of Derbyshire? Because in my lifetime, I've never really seen Derby as not being in Derbyshire. And I'm not sure what the overall population, but in terms of local democracy, that would come with how you actually split it up into wards. But to me, as soon as you put Derby in one and the rest without Derby, the city is always going to somehow generate more power, and they're going to be fighting against each other. I mean, has anybody's heads gone together with the possibility of having one council for Derbyshire? Because it is mentioned as one of the options here. I'm not sure it says a single tier local authority covering the whole of the county concerned, which would say to me Derbyshire is one council. It works in Cornwall perfectly well, but none of the discussions I've seen have suggested that. It's as if it's just they can't talk to each other.
Through you, Chair. Well, nobody has put forward that option as one which is one which would find support. Not even the county council have proposed that. In terms of an option, yes, it is an option, but whether it would actually meet the criteria and deliver the ambitions that government's laid down, clearly one would need to have a look at that in some detail. But if you was to just to have one council across the whole of Derbyshire, that would probably be one of the biggest councils in the whole of the country, because it will be approximately 1.2 million people. That is of the size of a Birmingham, a Manchester, something like that. And when you consider the geography that you are looking at in terms of service delivery, that would be very, very challenging. Imagine collecting the refuse bins from that sort of geography with one authority. It's those types of issues which need to be taken into account, and service delivery and service provision needs to be based on sensible geographies. That isn't something which happens at that scale anywhere else at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really understand that, because collecting refuse, you just organise the lorries and the refuse company to do it. I mean, they have rounds, don't they? So if it's in a bigger area, I just think if you end up with two councils, you're going to end up with those fighting against each other for the funding in the long run. The debt's going to be the same. The debt will still be in the county and the city. That's not going to go away, and it's going to have to be funded. And Derby City will always come out on top. That's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Martin Burfoot.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a simple question, really. It may be in the report somewhere, but the interim proposal and the case for change reports, such small print, I found it difficult to read it properly. But what is actually the population of Derby City on its own?
The population of Derby City is about 280, 290,000.
So they couldn't go ahead on their own, could they? In any case, they'd have to align with some other councils in the South Derbyshire and Erewash and so on.
Okay. Councillor Ripton, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'll echo Councillor O'Brien's point that northern split does isolate us from a sort of major city centre, and I urge you to consider that. But my question is, there's a piece in here about rationalisation of buildings, public estate. Is any consideration being given to how this new authority might find a way to retain some of those public buildings? I guess many of them will be quite iconic, or at least give communities the option to use those buildings first. Because I guess what I'm worrying is that there's a fire sale of public assets here, and I'm not convinced that the private sector's done a great job managing high streets or housing, and yet there's a danger we lose some quite iconic public buildings. So, how is that being considered, or if not, can that be considered in the next round of conversations?
Yeah, through you, Chair, it hasn't been considered yet, because we've had about 4 weeks to try and pull this together to meet that deadline. But it is an issue which needs to be considered as part of the next stage, because clearly, as part of any transition costs or efficiency savings that may arise through LGR, public assets is one such area. And a new council may not need all of the public assets which it currently holds across the various districts and boroughs, but it is a factor in the next phase of the development of the business case.
I think the ask for what it's worth is, how do we ensure there's some sort of backstop that allows communities maybe some sort of first refusal before these buildings are lost forever, particularly given the public purpose around regeneration and the like.
Okay, we've still got a few questions. I'm mindful that we've now been going for another half hour, in which case I'm going to ask if members would like to extend for a further 30 minutes in the confidence we should be able to conclude within that time. All those in favour, please, of that? I understand. All those against? 3. And any abstentions? Looks like one. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Understood. Thank you. So we're continuing with questions. Sorry? Chapman? He's leaving the meeting.
Oh, he's leaving.
Yeah, it's okay. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. And thank you for this paper, Paul. I'm aware that you have so many hats, and every time you present a paper, it's an excellent paper, and every time you respond to any of my career emails, it's an excellent response, and I couldn't ask for more. So thank you very much. I've got a question about sustainability of services. I can understand that the sorts of services that a district council provides can be provided by a bigger organisation, because you can always break it down into areas and deliver the service in a particular area and have a different operator for a different area. That's relatively straightforward. But I'm wondering about the services that the county council provides. For example, care for the aged, children, SEND and the adoption services, that sort of thing, the county records office. There are a variety of these services. Is it possible to reproduce those in a smaller authority without adding cost?
I think that's a really challenging question. The county council would say no, hence the reason why they've come forward with the proposal that they have. The discussions that we've had in our meetings is very much around, clearly there are different standards of service provision between Derbyshire County Council and Derby City Council, and it probably works both ways, that some are better than the other. The real benefit of creating two similar sized authorities is that you can take arguably the best of both, and you can apply it to a much smaller, more relevant geography, albeit bigger than a district or a borough boundary, and you can actually start from the bottom up. You can start to redefine and redesign those services, whereas if you take the existing structures and just try and apply it to a larger geography, then the opportunity cost might be lost in terms of trying to get the best possible service delivery. So that undoubtedly is a real challenge through LGR. And one of the things that we heard last week at the conference from those authorities that have been through this recently is not all of that is in place on day one. It can take literally a good few years. Some of those authorities are 3 years in and they've not got there yet. But if we take the model that the current framework of local government's been in existence for 50 years, then we need to make sure that the right model that we put in place now can last for that sort of period of time, and that's very much the intention that the government have indicated.
But if I can come back, if there will be a need, if it's two authorities which are different from the county authority and the city authority, there will be a need to create from scratch those services in the new authorities. So there will be a more difficult transition than there might be if there was a unitary county council authority and a unitary city authority.
There could well be. It will pose challenges, undoubtedly, yes.
Okay, Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Derbyshire Dales is one district. Is it possible that it's a very long district? It runs right from Haverses right down to New Burton-on-Trent. Is it possible that they could be divided, the district could be divided into different areas of Derbyshire, north and south? Or will it all go in one block to north or south?
The proposal in this document is that the whole of the district will be incorporated into a single new unitary structure alongside other authorities. So the district is not being split. None of the Derbyshire districts are being split in any way. Their existing boundaries are being taken. The only issue is with Amber Valley in terms of whether it sits in the north or the south. And that's a matter which Amber Valley are considering this evening as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Buttle.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Chair, indeed. I've heard various stories about populations of 300 to 350 being considered by the government. If we'd had the option and put the option forward to 300 to 350, we'd have less residents per councillor, presumably, and we might have come up with a completely different plan. Do you think that's right?
Had that guidance been provided, you may well have come up with a different plan. We may well have come up with a different plan. You know, we was working to the criteria which have been laid down, and it's been very consistent throughout many webinars and meetings that we've attended with civil servants and ministers that 500,000 was the figure that government was aiming at. It certainly appears in the last week or so at least that there is some relaxation around that, and there may well still be opportunities, because this being an interim proposal, we're not nailing our colours firmly to the mast that this is definitely the right model for Derbyshire. It's to start a discussion, and it will be ministers, Secretary of State who decide where that discussion goes, and if there is a change insofar as that population figure, we might come forward with different options at a later date. But this is very much predicated on the advice and the guidance and criteria we was asked to apply in the various ministerial letters that we've received so far.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Butcher.
Yes, thank you, Paul. As others have said, it's a really good report. One thing I note, on page 320, there's a large amount of work being listed there that needs to happen. It doesn't give a timeline for it, but I had understood a year or so, only a few weeks ago, that we weren't going to get involved in detailed planning for the future for at least another year or so. Is that still true, or are you finding actually even over the coming weeks and months that a lot of the council officers will have to divert their time and attention to the reorganisation?
Yes, so on page 320 of the agenda, that indicates the various work streams which are considered to be necessary in order to try and move this forward. And this work will be required in order to develop that detailed business case which is required by the end of November. So the issue of LGR is already consuming quite a lot of my time, a lot of the leaders' time, and a number of CLT officers' time as well. We can't contain this level just at CLT. There is far too much to do, so we are going to be pulling on our senior managers from across the organisation to help us with this. Because they've got the relevant knowledge and expertise, and they can very ably fight the corner for Derbyshire Dales as necessary. But the report that we may come on to in a little while regarding priorities does have an impact on the LGR agenda, and resource and capacity inevitably will become more stretched because of this.
Okay, thank you. I think we've concluded questions now. I can't see anybody else with a hand raised. In which case, do we have a proposer for these recommendations? Councillor Bourne.
Yes, I'm happy to propose this, Chair. I think it's a very notable conversation, and certainly to my intention, a very straightforward submission.
Okay.
Thank you.
And a seconder? Councillor Whitehead. Yeah, okay, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, so we've moved into debate now. We've got one or two hands up. Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I didn't ask any questions simply because I was at the table when all these discussions were going on. And yes, a lot of the questions that have been asked tonight are for the next stage of this process. Personally, I don't like unitary authorities of this size or nature. I think there is a problem because I believe in localism, being in close touch with your residents. I don't see how councillors with even 5,000 and 10,000 people to support can do that job properly and keep in touch. But we are where we are. And it was made very clear again at the conference we've been to, is that this will happen. Whether we like it or not, this will happen. And it will be irresponsible of us to ignore it, because our task now is to get the best possible situation we can. Yes, we've got to look at places like where's this new authority going to be based? Will there be any outreach work done with that, where we can have localism to get back to local people? But we also got to think about, the relationship and what MCA means now to the area. And we need some cohesion between the councils that we will probably merge with. And we're not, as we've said, voting on option 1 or option 2, but we're just putting the papers in to say this is an option, give us time now until September time to go away and work it through, so that then if it is accepted, then we can obviously move forward. And all these points will be brought forward. I don't quite agree with Paul when he talks about government ministers and inspectors looking at this. The conversations I've had, it'll be more like civil servants taking the decisions at the end of the day. And I'm concerned that the local MPs will not get as much say as what they think they will have had. So we've got to make sure that we get our message across for them to put pressure on these civil servants to make the right decision. So I'm hoping that everybody tonight can support this as a way forward. And if we don't, then we're going to have imposed on us and have nothing said at all. So we've got to be at the table, we've got to work together, and hopefully you'll support that tonight.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. I want to address the point that Paul Wilson made at the end there, and that's about the call on resources to service this exercise. I don't want to hear from officers that we aren't able to deliver our corporate plan priorities because we're spending so much time on local government reorganisation. That wasn't what I was elected to do, and I don't think it's what the other 33 members of the council were elected to do. We were elected to serve the interests of our residents, ensure they get the highest quality services. So what I would hope I would hear from officers is that if there is this additional call on resources, this is the proposal we have to reinforce our existing capacity. So it's not a question of whether we continue to work on local government reorganisation, or we on what corporate priorities we drop or reduce to a lower standard, but it's how we address both and where we and that we provide the resources necessary to deliver both. Take us back to the £1.5 million underspend. There should be no reason why, as an authority, we can't service both necessities.
Okay, Councillor G.
Yeah, I'd kind of say what Councillor O'Brien's saying, really. I mean, I'm elected as a Derbyshire Dales District Council, it seems to me I brought it with this agenda item 15. It's like, how are we going to be extinguished, basically? You know, executed? Are we going to be hung, drawn and quartered or thrown to the sharks? And I just think, you know, there isn't a coherent option here. I'm not convinced it's going to lead to money saving. I just don't think it's something that I can easily vote to recommend. I think I might be abstaining or voting against this because, you know, I'd like Derbyshire Dales District Council to remain. I think it serves the people well in Derbyshire. And I'm being told that it's, you know, it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. But are we certain of that? Because this doesn't seem very clear at all. You know, they don't know whether Amber Valley is going to go with Derby. They don't know if, you know, South Derbyshire are going to go with Derby. We don't know if we're going to be a donut. It's not clear. And I think until they come up with a really clear option, I wouldn't be able to vote for it. I'm sorry. I think we should stick at our own job.
Councillor Buttle.
Thank you, Gareth. I think I'm pretty much with you on this. I am going to abstain. I don't think, like, this is a Labour policy which is being imposed from above. It's attacking our local democracy. It's coming up with an arbitrary number of 500,000, which is totally arbitrary. There's other places which are supposedly going to be hitting 300,000. I am going to cooperate with the officers and with the work because I think our first priority is to actually try to assure our services are continued through to the next system. But I'm not going to vote for this because it's like turkeys voting for Christmas.
Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. I think we need to look around and look at lessons for areas that have had this imposed upon them. And I think the strong lesson that comes out of Cumbria and Somerset is that if you divide, you will be conquered. You have to go through. If you want it to work, you have to go for it. This is a shotgun wedding. Nobody wants it probably in this room at all, but it's going to happen, as I think two of you have said, and I think we need to be prepared for it. And just sort of saying, oh, we don't like this, the consequence of that attitude, I think, is just simply being unprepared, and that'll be a disaster. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hughes. No, okay. Councillor Bull.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I can see all of this. Yeah, we don't want to be split up. You know, what was it, 2011 when we brought in the localism bill and we started having neighbourhood plans and getting everything local, and now suddenly it's splitting and going further afield again. Yes, we are district and we do provide a service for our local communities and we want to see that happen. But this has been forced upon us, and I do feel that we need to be at the table to have our say at the end of the day, because if we're not, then we haven't got a voice at the end of it. If we're there speaking at the time, it's no use shouting when the horse has bolted. So my opinion is we've got to stick. Whether these options are the right options at the moment, but that can be obviously concreted together and in time when you all do work together. Hopefully when the government decides, OK, we like your ideas, that you're going to do it that way, tell us how you're going to do it, and then that's for us to come back to the table to fight that out. The only thing I would ask, rather than having 5 minutes, and I know it's been put on you by the government, but I think we should be involved more frequently with this ongoing situation and not just calling an extraordinary meeting to make a decision. We need to be working together through it, the whole process. And that's what I feel that we should be doing. Thank you.
Councillor Franks.
Thank you, Chair. I've been through, I've worked for 2 councils where the reverse has happened, where I've been part of come under a big region or come under Greater Manchester City and seen it both of those break down into smaller authorities. I think the lessons I learnt from those occurrences can be applied also in reverse into this situation. And I think it is so important, because this will happen, and it doesn't matter whether we agree with it or not. It's being put on us. We have to be involved to make sure that we get the best deal we can for our residents. And I don't think we should be turning a blind eye because we disagree with it and just hoping it'll go away. It's not going to go away. This is going to happen. Whatever happens, whether it's the county council's option, whether it's what Derby City, whether it's what one of these two options that come up, we've got to be in there. Our officers have got to be in there, regardless of how we end up split. It is so vitally important that we get the best. If we're not in there, we're going to end up being dumped on and having such poor services in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just say as well, I mean, I'm glad we've had this debate and heard from so many people. To people outside this room, it may seem that this is some sort of obscure, unimportant thing which doesn't affect their everyday lives. They're completely wrong if they think that. This is absolutely huge. And what concerns me as much as anything else, I think, is the fact that all of this is being done against a background of local government which has been seriously underfunded for decades. We've heard that we are having to bear the costs of this. Say we, the ratepayers, the residents of Derbyshire are having to bear that costs of change, and yet there are so many questions. I particularly appreciate Councillor G's point about, why has nobody talked about the elephant in the room of the whole of the county coming together? And yet, although we're talking about this now in 15, 20 minutes, the people out there are having precious little say on this. There has been a spurious consultation perhaps from another authority, which I could refer to, but people's lives are going to be affected by this for decades to come, and it seems that we're faced with an invidious position. We have little choice perhaps with the recommendations that are in front of us now, but make no mistake, this is going to affect people's lives for decades. We've had a proposer, thank you, and a seconder. Can we now move to the vote, please? Yes, of course. And there are several recommendations. There's 4 recommendations in front of you. Seconder for the recorded vote, please. Peter Dobbs, Councillor Dobbs. Yeah. Okay. Off we go with the recorded vote, please.
Councillor Archer.
4.
Councillor Bates.
4.
Councillor Boynton.
4.
Councillor Bond.
4.
Councillor Buckler.
4.
Councillor Bull.
4.
Councillor Martin Burfoot.
4.
Councillor Sue Burfoot. 4. Councillor Bob Butcher.
4.
Councillor Buttle.
Abstain.
Councillor Chapman. Sorry. Councillor Dobbs.
4.
Councillor Edwards Walker.
Abstain.
Councillor Flitter.
4.
Councillor Franks.
4.
Councillor Froggatt.
4.
Councillor G.
Against.
Councillor Hughes.
4.
Councillor Lees.
Against.
Councillor Linthwaite. 4. Councillor Maelstrom.
4.
Councillor Murphy. He left. Yeah. Councillor O'Brien.
Abstain.
Councillor Peacock. 4. Councillor Ripton.
4.
Councillor Shelley.
Abstain.
Councillor Slack.
4.
Councillor Wayne.
Abstain.
Councillor Whitehead.
4.
And Councillor Wilton.
4.
Thank
And 5 abstentions. Okay, so we have a result now. Thank you for coming back in. We have in favour of the 4 recommendations 21, with 2 against and 5 abstentions. So thank you, that is carried. I'm going to have to indulge your patience again for another, hopefully very, very short extension. We have 2 remaining items on the agenda, which I'm confident we can get through in 15 minutes. Can we have a vote to extend for a further 15, please? In favour? Hands going up all the time? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Let's take against. I appreciate the numbers probably rising slightly. Yeah.
Chair, can't I move that we defer the further items because they're not vital to the decision-making process?
I'll second that.
All right, okay.
We're on the vote to extend at the moment.
Yeah. Let's just deal with the vote to extend, please. So we're halfway through that vote. And abstentions? Okay.
How many were against?
There were 6 against. Yeah.
Right, so we've extended.
So we've extended. We now have a vote to defer. We have a proposal from Councillor O'Brien and a seconder from Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Flitter.
Yes, Chair, I want to speak against the deferral because this is an important event in our calendar year, and this is going to affect every single parish and town council over the whole of the Derbyshire Dales and aid them if they want to celebrate the event. And for that reason, I'd like to continue this meeting and allow this to happen.
Right, okay, so we're moving to a vote on deferral then, I believe, aren't we? All those in favour of deferring the final 2 motions, please show. And all those against deferring. Okay. That's clearly lost, but abstentions? 1, yeah. Okay, we're carrying on. Thank you. Item 16, Paul. Anniversaries.
Thank you, Chair. This year does mark 2 very significant anniversaries in terms of victory in Europe and victory over Japan. The District Council has received a correspondence from the Minister seeking council support for community initiatives, encouraging initiatives, and seeking to make it as easy as possible for those communities to actually commemorate these 2 important events. The proposal before you replicates something very similar to what we did to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. It's replicated here, and the report is self-explanatory, Chair. Nothing further to add.
Any questions? Councillor Hobson.
Chair, Paul.
Oh, sorry. Was there some... Go ahead. You did have your hand up.
Thanks,
first.
Chair.
Councillor White.
I was also going to propose just to move straight to vote.
To the vote, okay. Really quick, yeah.
It is a quick question. In my communities, Froggatt, Enza and Pilsley are village meetings, so they do want to celebrate things, but they're obviously not part of this initiative. Is there any way that they could be included?
This was an issue which did arise during the Platinum Jubilee, and one of the key issues at that point was because they don't, not all of them have to file accounts, and you're not dealing with necessarily an elected body, you might be dealing with individuals. So it was making sure there was transparency in terms of the expenditure and accountability of public money. So that's the reason why parish meetings and the like weren't included. It's for you as members to decide whether you wish to support them or not.
Okay.
Chair, is there another avenue for them to apply for the grants off the members' community fund? Because I'm sure the local ward members would appreciate that if they got some inquiries about that situation.
Well, that's an option. Okay. unless that's a serious proposal to amend, we do have a proposal to go straight to the vote. Do we have a seconder? We have numerous seconders. I'm spoilt for choice. Councillor Wayne, yeah, okay. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? Yeah, both recommendations. Thank you. Item 17, final item on the agenda, corporate plan priorities update.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So whilst this report is in my name, this is actually the work of the Progressive Alliance, who have been looking at our corporate plan, which all council has considered and approved. This piece of work seeks to give priorities to the key themes within that corporate plan. It's to assist the corporate leadership team and the remainder of the organisation to make sure that our resources are appropriately aligned to deliver on the corporate plan. And from that point of view, it's presented to council for formal endorsement. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions? No? Do we? Thank you. That's a proposer. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Wilton. All those in favour, please show. Any against? And any abstentions? 3 abstentions. Members, thank you very much for your patience tonight. I know it's been a long meeting. Have a safe journey home.
Well done, Chair. If I can say so myself.